Chapter 261. Wang Ling was blank at this scene. He was sitting in the shade of a tree pretending to rest, which should have been a pretty inconspicuous position. But Wang Ling had overlooked one thing: this position happened to be facing Fang Xing, and was actually quite close to him. In the end, Teacher Yi had just finished speaking when Fang Xing directly walked over to him. "Classmate, can I borrow your sword for a while?" Fang Xing smiled with a very relaxed expression. Wang Ling actually didn't want to lend it to him. For a cultivator, any magic treasure that belonged solely to them was a very private thing. And the most important thing was that Jinka had a very special meaning to him. After Fang Xing asked the question, neither of them moved as they looked at each other more than a meter apart. This was also Wang Ling's first time looking at Fang Xing face to face. One sat in the shade of a tree, the other stood in the sunlight. The two of them formed a sharp contrast. In the sunlight, Fang Xing's hair was a little brown. He was still wearing the same white short-sleeved shirt and blue striped sweatpants. His face was very fair, which made Wang Ling feel that if he wore women's clothes, he would definitely be an expert. After a full minute of silence, Wang Ling finally stretched out his hand and handed Jinka over. Because he really couldn't stand the scorching gazes of the girls around him. Fang Xing was now like the sun. He had just arrived at number 60 high school, but he was already shining in all directions and was really too eye-catching. Wang Ling had actually expected that if he refused Fang Xing's request, he would probably be hated by others even more than if he hadn't lent it to him. Thus, although Wang Ling had lent Fang Xing his sword, he didn't really like this person. He hadn't read that Fang Xing was deliberately trying to borrow his spirit sword. Everything had seemed very natural. But Wang Ling had a feeling in his heart that Fang Xing was doing it on purpose. Of course, Wang Ling also had his own reasons for handing Jinka over. Jinka had its own consciousness. If Fang Xing really was up to no good, given Jinka's strength, it would definitely be able to detect it. Thus, the rest of the PE class became Fang Xing's one-man show. In previous years, number 60 high school had always done poorly in the district school sports meet, and as the head of the sports team's teaching and research team, Teacher Yi had always had a headache. This year, number 60 high school's elite class finally had a few sports talent students like Super Chen. Coupled with the sudden discovery of a good seedling like Fang Xing today, Teacher Yi felt that this was an opportunity that absolutely couldn't be missed. Holding Jinka, Fang Xing stood at the starting line and waited for Teacher Yi to start. Using the teaching spirit sword, Fang Xing had run 10 laps in a good time of 1.5 minutes. If he used a normal spirit sword, the final result wouldn't be more than 30 seconds, which was 2 minutes. Teacher Yi felt that number 60 high's running event in the sports meet this year was basically a done deal. As Teacher Yi waved his hand, Fang Xing started to run along the track. A cultivator's jogging speed was much faster than an ordinary person's sprint. As soon as Fang Xing took off, she left a trail of afterimages behind her, and the girls around her instantly turned into cheerleaders. The girls cheered while the boys gossiped on the side. As a transfer student, Fang Xing was a little jumpy, which made some of the boys unhappy. But he could only suppress this unhappiness in his heart. At this critical juncture, anyone who went against Fang Xing definitely wouldn't end up well. Not only would he have to suffer the disdainful looks from the girls, even if he were to look for trouble in private, it was very likely that he wouldn't be able to win. How did the saying go again? "I like the look on your face when you can't stand me, but can't get rid of me." Wang Ling felt that this saying was very appropriate for Fang Xing right now. Fang Xing ran the first 6 laps with surprising ease, and Jinka hovered steadily above his head. When he had handed Jinka over to Fang Xing, Wang Ling had already told Jinka to be as relaxed as possible, and he had also thought of a way to increase Fang Xing's consumption of spirit energy. What Wang Ling hadn't expected was that Fang Xing would actually be able to endure it. On the 7th lap, sweat finally dripped down Fang Xing's cheeks, and he clearly slowed down a little. Of course, in the eyes of an ordinary person, this speed was actually still a series of afterimages. Thus, Teacher Ye's eyes followed Fang Xing closely, and he was highly focused. After teaching physical education for so many years, Teacher Yi was actually very sensitive to this kind of slight difference in speed. Sitting in the shade of a tree and watching the show, Wang Ling saw Super Chen on the side, hands on his waist, dumbstruck. Classmate Fang Xing is too abnormal. Wang Ling felt that this, abnormal, was probably a great compliment for Fang Xing. Super Chen was a first-class athlete at the foundation establishment stage in Huashu Nation, and most of the time he looked at Fang Xing, he was judging him. For Super Chen to say such a thing was already enough to prove that Fang Xing wasn't ordinary. But Wang Ling always felt that Fang Xing wasn't as simple as he looked. Wang Ling looked at the track. In the blink of an eye, Fang Xing had already run the 9th lap. Accompanied by the cheers of the girls around him, Fang Xing's slow pace abruptly changed to 1 minute and 31 seconds. On the 10th lap, he passed in front of Teacher Yi like a gust of wind, and the stopwatch finally stopped at 1 minute and 31 seconds. Too awesome. Teacher Yi looked at the stopwatch and was so excited that he almost jumped up. When Fang Xing had been using a spirit sword normally, there had only been a difference of 1 second. Furthermore, the most important thing was that the spirit sword Fang Xing was using was Wang Ling's, not his own, and they hadn't signed a contract. In a situation where their chemistry wasn't that high, Fang Xing had actually run even better than the sports students. Teacher Yi instantly felt that he had picked up a treasure. After the run, Fang Xing's face was a little red. Panting, he came up to Wang Ling to thank him and return Jinka. When he took Jinka back, Wang Ling already knew for sure that Fang Xing's realm was far from being as simple as the foundation establishment stage. What on earth was this person hiding? This feeling of not being able to figure out Fang Xing's background made Wang Ling a little uncomfortable. Fang Xing pulled up his white short-sleeved shirt to wipe his sweat and smiled brightly. Classmate, thank you. Oh, by the way, I haven't asked your name yet. Wang Ling hid the profoundness in his eyes under his bangs. This was the second time the two of them had looked at each other. Before Fang Xing could say anything, Super Chen on the side had already interjected. His name is Wang Ling, and he doesn't like to talk much. Super Chen had always been the type to get to know people easily, and he always had an inexplicable fondness for top athletes in sports. Thus, his impression of Fang Xing wasn't bad. Oh, so it's classmate Wang Ling, Fang Xing nodded. Suddenly, he turned to look at Teacher Yi on the side. Teacher Yi, have you found everyone for the sports meet? Teacher Yi rubbed his chin and said thoughtfully, we haven't decided on the specific lineup yet, but our school wants to be a key city high school this year, so we still have to pay attention to the district competition this time. Headmaster Chen wants me to bring out the strongest lineup. As for our 2 elite classes, you and classmate Chen are already confirmed. I see, Fang Xing smiled and bared his teeth at Teacher Yi. Actually, I think classmate Wang Ling is also pretty strong. Why don't you let him come along? Wang Ling could see it now. Chapter 262. This was the first time Wang Ling had felt like he had been schemed against. There were times when metaphysics could happen, but Wang Ling believed that under certain circumstances, coincidences could happen. But when coincidences happened once, twice, or even more than once, Wang Ling couldn't help but start to suspect the event itself. Thus, Wang Ling had a very special impression of Fang Xing. That kind of casual or intentional contact with him out of the corner of his eye, which seemed like a coincidence but also didn't seem like a coincidence, had made Wang Ling extremely wary of Fang Xing. But while he was on guard, Wang Ling never thought that he would be the first to fall into Fang Xing's trap. With Fang Xing's recommendation, Teacher Yi was naturally very happy. Furthermore, it couldn't be said that Teacher Yi didn't have any impression of Wang Ling. At the previous Spirit Sword Exchange meet at number 59 High School, Teacher Yi had felt that Wang Ling's luck had been exceptionally good. Perhaps this time, he could also go out as a mascot? Classmate Wang Ling, can you participate? And so, after Fang Xing's recommendation, Teacher Yi looked at Wang Ling with a hopeful and earnest expression. Wang Ling, actually, Wang Ling had heard Super Chen mention the district sports meet before. But for him to represent the school in a sports meet of this level, Wang Ling felt that he was usually pretty low-key in school, and even his sports scores were average. Furthermore, there were a lot of sports talent students like Super Chen among this year's senior grade 1 freshmen, and Wang Ling felt that he definitely wouldn't get a chance with the limited number of spots. Now that he thought about it carefully, Wang Ling felt like he had sold himself out. What a strange flag he had set up. In the end, Wang Ling agreed. Of course, he had been forced to agree. After school that day, Fang Xing walked out of the school gate surrounded by a group of girls as usual. Wang Ling was also the one who chose to leave school at this time. Furthermore, there was a long distance between Wang Ling and Fang Xing. At this stage, Wang Ling felt that it was better to stay away from such a dazzling person. Wang Ling could have chosen to teleport home, but the old man happened to be in the city today to visit some of the disciples he had taken in at a star-rated hotel, so he had come to pick Wang Ling up on Sheep's little tricycle. The most amazing thing was that even Loopy Toad had come along. Looking across the street at number 60 High School's gate, Wang Ling saw the old man waiting on the other side of the road on his freshly maintained sheep, with a green-furred Akita lying lazily on the ground and wagging its tail. This scene was a little strange. The old man's parking spot was quite conspicuous, and a lot of people could actually see it. Thus, as soon as school was over, Wang Ling grabbed his bag and left class. He wanted to leave quickly and avoid Fang Xing. Ling, what's going on? Why do you look so flustered? The old man was a little puzzled. Loopy Toad raised its eyes to look at Wang Ling and winked strangely. It also felt that its little master Ling wasn't himself today. But very quickly, it saw Fang Xing say goodbye to a group of girls on the other side of the road, and it instantly understood what had happened. This was probably Loopy Toad's first time seeing Fang Xing, but it felt very strange. It felt that Fang Xing's aura was indescribably familiar. It felt like it had smelled it somewhere before. Ling, is this your classmate? The old man stared at Fang Xing for a while as he walked over. Then, he gave his first impression of Fang Xing. Your classmate has such long legs. Wang Ling, although the old man was old and had once suffered from dementia, his sense of beauty hadn't waned at all. Ever since he had learned to watch videos on demand from Father Wang, he had studied a lot about modern young people's otaku culture, and could be considered a rather fashionable old man. Hello, Grandpa, are you here to pick up classmate Wang Ling? Fang Xing came closer and greeted him warmly. Then, Wang Ling saw the old man nod and raise his hand to say, "You're okay." Wang Ling, Fang Xing laughed heartily. Grandpa, you're so funny. You're not in the same class as our Ling, right? Why don't I see you in the class photo at the start of the semester? The old man asked. My name is Fang Xing, I'm new here. I just registered here the day before yesterday, Fang Xing replied. So he was a transfer student. The old man was instantly enlightened. For a parent like this to suddenly transfer in the middle of a class, the connections and financial resources behind him probably weren't simple. Furthermore, the old man had already pictured Fang Xing's parents in his mind. He thought of a line from a skit, big heads and thick necks, either rich or a cook. So, if this classmate Fang Xing's parents weren't rich, then they were probably chefs. The old man instantly felt that he had found a common language. Wang Ling already didn't know what to say to ridicule the old man's strange train of thought. Classmate Fang, although you're not in the same class as Ling, you're still schoolmates. In the future, we'll be indebted to you for taking care of our Ling. The old man smiled at Fang Xing. Don't worry, Grandpa, in 2 weeks, classmate Wang Ling and I will represent the school in the Mere School sports meet. I'll take good care of classmate Wang Ling. When Fang Xing said this, he still had a harmless smile on his face, and his eyes were narrowed into slits, which looked a little meaningful. But that was the strange part. When Wang Ling had read Fang Xing's mind, he hadn't detected even the slightest bit of evil. This was truly the strangest person he had ever seen. After chatting with the old man for a while, Fang Xing suddenly noticed the ingredients in the tricycle. When the old man had left the hotel, his former disciples had forcefully given him these fresh fruits and vegetables, and they filled up half the tricycle. There were all sorts of vegetables and fruits, as well as a huge cured ham. The ham was vacuum-packed and had the words, "Secret Recipe of Kikaro Restaurant," written on it. Grandpa, are you a chef? Fang Xing asked curiously. But I retired long ago. When I get old, I can barely lift a spoon. The old man smiled. What a coincidence. Fang Xing was pleasantly surprised when he received the old man's reply. To tell you the truth, my family actually runs a noodle shop. Oh. Noodle shop. What kind of noodles do you sell? The old man's interest was suddenly piqued. Fang Xing, we sell all kinds of noodles. But our shop's most famous noodle is still the handmade beef tendon noodles made by a master in Lanzhou. We also weave the beef tendon noodles into the shape of instant noodles, and fry them at high temperatures. Finally, we make crispy noodle snacks. The old man, Loopy Toad. Chapter 263. Wang Ling didn't know if Fang Xing's appearance could be considered a coincidence, but he had to admit that no one had ever been able to make such a big impact on his life. After school on Wednesday, the old man and Fang Xing had only exchanged a few words before they had already completely hooked up with each other. For a time, Wang Ling deeply wondered who the old man's real grandson was. It was said that good food could bring people closer, but Wang Ling had always felt that this was actually a questionable theory. After all, not all milk was called trensu, and not all aphrodisiacs could make a person's clothes explode. In particular, Wang Ling maintained an extremely high level of composure in front of Fang Xing. Wang Ling was surprised to find that this was the first time he had calmed down in the face of the sugar-coated bullet of crispy noodle snacks. It was a weekend on June 25th, and the old man went out early in the morning. After their meeting on Wednesday, Fang Xing and the old man exchanged contact information, and Fang Xing enthusiastically invited the old man to visit his family's noodle shop this weekend. While exchanging pointers on cooking, they could also discuss some academic issues from a gourmet perspective. According to the old man, although Fang Xing's parents owned this noodle shop, Fang Xing would usually help the noodle master pull noodles on the weekends when he was free. When he left, the old man specially went to Wang Ling's room to ask him to go with him. Because he didn't want to have too much contact with Fang Xing, Wang Ling chose to play dead in his room. In the end, the old man knocked on the door for a long time, but there was no response, so he could only go alone. Wang Ling watched as the old man left on sheep. When he left, he had Loopy Toad follow him to protect the old man. Of course, Wang Ling had another reason for having Loopy Toad go, and that was to check out Fang Xing. People with evil intentions would most likely have evil karma on them, and as a demon king, Loopy Toad was very sensitive to this kind of smell. After watching the old man disappear from sight on sheep, Wang Ling finally breathed a slight sigh of relief. When he opened the door, Wang Ling bumped into Lai Mengmeng. It was clear that Lai Mengmeng and Father Wang were almost done with the script. Father Wang was now doing the final edits on the first 300,000 words of his new book, The Live Streaming Life of the Immortal King. In a week's time, it would be directly published online. In a week, he would directly publish it online, and then hold a godly press conference. Lai Mengmeng had been at the Wang family's small villa for the last few days, and most of the time he was in Father Wang's study, patiently giving his opinion on the draft. Wang Ling hadn't seen him anywhere else. Even at mealtime, it was Mother Wang who had prepared portions for two. To be honest, Lai Mengmeng's presence was very low. In some sense, he was like the sixth man of illusion. Lai Mengmeng had deep dark circles under his eyes, his hair looked messy, and his bangs stood up like a hedgehog's. Because he had stayed up too late last night, he had directly fallen asleep on the sofa in the study. As soon as she woke up, she saw Wang Ling as soon as she opened the door. He had just woken up when he saw Wang Ling. Lai Mengmeng yawned. He was over 180 centimeters tall and had a skinny body. Wang Ling had once wondered if this person would pass out after several days in a row with Father Wang in the study. Xiao Song, you're awake? Hearing Lai Mengmeng's voice, Mother Wang hurriedly greeted him from downstairs. You've worked hard, come down and eat first. Are you hungry? Not at all, not at all. This is what I should do. Sister, I've really troubled you. Lai Mengmeng awkwardly greeted Mother Wang as he went downstairs. When he saw Mother Wang downstairs, he even bowed repeatedly, as shy as he had been when he first arrived. How's the situation? Mother Wang came out with a plate of dumplings and placed it in front of Lai Mengmeng. Speaking of novels, Lai Mengmeng, who had just woken up, was in high spirits again. This time, Brother Situ's novel is really great. If it was fired, it would definitely be able to catch fire. I think it won't be a problem for this book to surpass Let Go of That Wet Nurse. Before he could care about the dumplings in front of him, he hurriedly continued, although the theme of live streaming is a cliché, it is still the main force of the current series of entertaining and relaxing novels. Previously, Brother Situ had accumulated a lot of experience with Let Go of That Wet Nurse, so he was able to handle the new book more easily than before. There were a lot of jokes and memes in the book. There were also live streaming elements and plagiarism elements. Furthermore, the plot was really great. It's about an invincible high school student's daily life. Wang Ling. In order to keep a low profile, the protagonist chose a relatively ordinary high school, and in the end, by a freak combination of factors, he entered the elite class of an ordinary high school. In the Dao Talismans class on the first week of school, he accidentally summoned a demon king, who was then taken in as a pet by the protagonist. Now that I think about it, it's still very interesting. Lai Mengmeng smiled very happily. Also, after discussing it with Brother Situ, I feel that we can definitely make an Invincible series based on this theme. In the future, when we write books, each one will have an invincible protagonist. We'll clearly write each person's story, and finally write an epilogue where all the protagonists will fight for the Holy Grail together. Wang Ling, Mother Wang couldn't help laughing dryly at this familiar plot. Ha ha ha, as long as you're happy. Wang Ling already didn't have the energy to ridicule her. This was the first time he had seen someone sell out their son so thoroughly. Mother Wang had put in 40 dumplings, but Lai Mengmeng's stomach was surprisingly small. He had only eaten 10 dumplings when he rubbed his stomach and found that he couldn't eat anymore. He looked at Mother Wang and said, "Sister, should we call Brother Situ down for dinner? When we came down earlier, it seemed like he was still sleeping." Mother Wang sighed. "Just let him sleep. He's been exhausted these past 2 days. I just made some chicken soup, and when he wakes up, it'll be almost done. Both of you should drink some." "Oh, okay, thank you, sister." Lai Mengmeng smiled, showing his big white teeth. "You've been busy for a few nights, do you want to go wash up first?" Mother Wang asked as she looked at Lai Mengmeng's messy hair. "Ah, that's so embarrassing, it's fine, it's fine. You've been here so many times already, why are you still acting like a big girl?" Hands on her hips, Mother Wang smiled a little helplessly. "The new dental tools and cups are under the cupboard in the washroom on the second floor, go look for them later. You and your brother should be about the same size, I'll find some clothes for you later." Lai Mengmeng blushed. "Then, thank you so much, sister. Don't mention it." Mother Wang waved her hand. "It's getting cold now, I'll give you a set of long johns, remember to wear them." Lai Mengmeng. Chapter 264. It was only around 8 o'clock now, which was still quite early. Wang Ling ate some dumplings. While eating breakfast, he glanced at the chat group in passing and found that it was quite lively in the morning. Dharmaraja had started the conversation and was talking about Devil Valley. Wang Ling had heard before that this was a legendary secret land, but it had only appeared pitifully few times in history. Furthermore, most of them originated from rumors in the cultivation circle. The most frequent place to appear was in one's circle of friends. No one had ever seen the existence of Devil Valley with their own eyes. According to effective statistics, it had appeared less often than the Gate Between Worlds. Thus, Wang Ling was still very interested in this secret land. On the other hand, he had to find Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal for another matter. A few days ago, during the joint military training exercise for the 6 schools, the troll arm that had been cut off by the Gate Between Worlds was still in his field of vision. This was a severed limb of a demon king, and wouldn't rot even if it was in his field of vision. But to be honest, it wasn't of much use to Wang Ling naturally. This demon king's arm was a great tonic for cultivators, but neither Father Wang nor Mother Wang had the fortune to enjoy it. Even if it was just a severed limb, the demon energy inside was too strong. If an ordinary person ate one bite, they definitely wouldn't be able to withstand the impact of the demon energy, and would explode and die. Thus, Wang Ling felt that it was better to give it to grenade throwing as soon as possible for him to recycle it. The troll demon king's arm was a treasure from its tendons to its bones. The bones could be used as material for fatty luo to refine weapons, and the remaining tendons could be ground into powder for immortal Toya to use as medicine. While Lai Mengmeng went upstairs to take a shower, Mother Wang cleaned up the dining table. Just as Lai Mengmeng was about to go upstairs, he heard Mother Wang's voice from the kitchen. "Ling Ling, it seems there was a delivery at the door earlier. Take a look and see if it's yours." Someone had sent him something? Wang Ling hesitated for a moment. He hadn't expected anyone to send him a package. And now, even the delivery person was so elusive, leaving after dropping off the package without even confirming who had received it. Just thinking about it like a thief was exciting. Sure enough, when he reached the door, he found a parcel on the ground. It was wrapped tightly and could be described as airtight. A flat cardboard box was wrapped in a thick layer of elastic plastic paper, and a layer of black steel film was added at the center. In other words, if one wasn't a cultivator, an ordinary person wouldn't be able to open this package. Based on the quality and toughness of the black steel membrane, if one wanted to tear open the package without the help of any magic weapon, they would need to at least be at the gold core stage. But, who on earth sent this to him? The sender on the package was a series of asterisks, obviously anonymous. Wang Ling felt that this was very strange and a little fishy. Because he did not sense anyone passing by the villa, it was obvious that the courier who delivered the package was an expert and had done a good job of concealment. That was why he neglected his observation and became a fish that slipped through the net. Wang Ling put the parcel away. First, he listened to the sound, then shook it violently. The inside of the package was also handled very tightly, without the slightest trace of movement. Then, Wang Ling opened his heavenly eye and directly penetrated it to confirm that this package didn't contain anything dangerous like a bomb. It was actually a very small USB flash drive. After thinking for a bit, Wang Ling used his fingernails to cut open the package as easily as if he were cutting tofu. "Sister, your water heater is so comfortable. It can actually sense the temperature. When I feel a little cold, it immediately warms up." At that moment, Lai Mengmeng came downstairs while praising the smart water heater which Wang Ming had researched and modified. He was wearing Father Wang's long-sleeved shirt and jeans, and Wang Ling could vaguely see the bright red long johns inside through the collar. "Don't stand on ceremony, just treat it as your own home," Mother Wang replied. The water heater that Lai Mengmeng was talking about was probably one of the few things in the Wang family that Wang Ling hadn't enchanted. There were 3 bathrooms in the Wang family's small villa, and apart from the toilet in Wang Ling's room, he hadn't touched the others. The water heater was installed on top of the bath tyrant. If this guy had been enchanted, it would be a gremlin, and it would actually be weird to have a gremlin stare at you every day when you took a bath. After the bath, Lai Mengmeng was clearly a lot more energetic than before. His eyes were very sharp, and he saw the USB flash drive in Wang Ling's hand at first glance. Recognizing the logo on the USB flash drive, he had an excited expression on his face. "Isn't this the new game Outlast?" Wang Ling hadn't expected this USB flash drive to be just a game. He had thought that it would contain some kind of educational video on human reproduction. "I've seen the trailer for this game. After you enter the game world, you have to complete the missions assigned by the game's main god one by one, survive the checkpoints, and reach the final checkpoint, and you win." Lai Mengmeng stared enviously at the USB flash drive in Wang Ling's hand. But this game hasn't been officially released on the market yet, and the ones circulating now are all early versions. "How on earth did you get your hands on it?" Wang Ling looked at the USB flash drive with a stupefied expression. He seriously suspected that someone had mailed it to the wrong person. "This game can be played by multiple people. Do you want to play it?" Lai Mengmeng stared at the USB flash drive and swallowed. Wang Ling felt that if he didn't stop this geek, the USB flash drive would definitely be eaten up. Looking at Lai Mengmeng's expression, Wang Ling suddenly recalled what Father Wang had once said: novels were in fact all damn fat geeks, But now Wang Ling could see the difference between Lai Mengmeng and other novels. It turned out that there weren't just damn fat geeks, there were also damn skinny geeks. Unable to resist Lai Mengmeng's burning gaze, Wang Ling could only take him back to the bedroom, turn on the computer, and plug in the USB flash drive. In less than a minute, this game called Outlast had already been automatically installed on the computer. As the progress bar filled up, the game window directly popped up. Wang Ling rarely played games, but he was still stunned by how exquisite this game was. This was because the USB flash drive used in this game had been independently designed. When the game was loaded, the entire game interface could be directly projected on the computer screen and then enveloped the whole room, creating a holographic effect. This game is amazing. Lai Mengmeng was very excited. The game's rendering is very good. This USB flash drive is black technology. Wang Ling didn't say anything as he watched the scenery around him change. Then, a line of bloody words suddenly appeared in the air in front of him. Do you want to understand the meaning of life? Do you want to truly live? Chapter 265. This line of bloody words was hidden in the air, and Wang Ling could even smell the real scent of blood from it. If this was just a line of special effects in a game, it was too realistic. Wang Ling frowned and had a vague feeling that something was wrong. On the contrary, Lai Mengmeng looked very excited. This was because the realism of the game had already far exceeded his expectations. It actually wasn't difficult nowadays to use high-tech holographic technology like a USB drive and a computer screen to directly project a scene. But for it to be this realistic, Lai Mengmeng guessed that a high-level illusion spell had to have been incorporated into it. Under normal circumstances, ordinary people wouldn't be able to play this kind of game that combined cultivation spells to enhance the realism of the game. But Escape was different. In the latest game trailer last month, this was currently the only unrestricted massively multiplayer online survival game in the world. Below the bloody words, there were only two options, yes and no. Lai Mengmeng pointed in the direction of yes, and very quickly, the initial loading screen of the game began. A string of words appeared in the air one after another. Do you think studying is the only way to make you happy? Do you think studying every day is the only way to feel good all over? Do you think you'll feel uncomfortable if you don't study for a day? Wrong all over. Actually, playing games is fine too. Moderate gaming is good for the brain, but gaming addiction is bad for the body. Wang Ling stared at this slightly jumpy introduction to preventing addiction, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help twitching. Then, he saw the final loading screen, which had a logo of two axes stacked on top of each other. Below the logo were the words, Xianfu Technology. It was only at this point that Lai Mengmeng found it a little strange. As far as he could remember, Outlast didn't seem to be the same company, but very quickly, Lai Mengmeng was so engrossed by the game that he actually completely forgot about this. According to the plot, Wang Ling and Lai Mengmeng appeared in an ambulance on the way to a mental hospital. You are the second batch of test takers to be sent into this world, and also the most outstanding batch. A voice rang out from beside him. Wang Ling turned his head and saw an old man in a white coat staring at him. He looked to be in his 50s or 60s and had a skinny body. He wore a pair of reading glasses and his waist was full of syringes, which made him look very strange. Lai Mengmeng didn't even need to think to know that this must be some kind of Frankenstein character setting. This was the first time he had come into contact with an NPC in a holographic environment, and he couldn't help but reach out to touch it. Everything was too real, too cool. Before I say mission. The corner of the old man's mouth twitched. He couldn't help but look at Lai Mengmeng. Please be a little more serious. Can you first remove the hand that's pinching my face? Ah, sorry. Lai Mengmeng quickly retracted his hand. The old man was silent for a moment and looked at the two of them. You two should have realized it by now. You two have fallen into an extremely powerful illusion. Next, I will send you all to the mental hospital. Before you complete the Lord God's mission, this illusion effect will continue. What you need to do is to cooperate with the other teams that come to the hospital according to the requirements of the mission and escape from the hospital. A continuous illusion spell? Lai Mengmeng was a little surprised. Although Escape was indeed the only unrestricted survival game in the world that incorporated magic to make it more realistic, he hadn't expected the game to actually have a mechanism where you couldn't quit until you completed the mission. In other words, if we don't complete the mission, we can't quit the game, right? Lai Mengmeng asked the old man. That's right. The old man smiled evilly. His eyes were very mysterious. Then, what if your mom calls you for dinner? Lai Mengmeng couldn't help complaining. Wang Ling, the old man, what if someone hasn't finished their homework? The old man, if someone is stuck and can't get out, can you still force them to stay? This mechanism is too unscientific. The old man broke out in a sweat, and at the same time, his expression suddenly turned extremely ferocious. A game is a game. No one can leave before you finish the game. And let me tell you, in this illusion spell, you will feel pain, you will get hurt, you will even die. Die? Hearing this, Lai Mengmeng was finally stunned. The old man chuckled. How is it, scared? Lai Mengmeng's next words almost made the old man spit blood. What the hell? Your game has a resurrection token mechanism? The old man felt like he was going crazy. Suddenly, he pulled out a syringe and stabbed it hard into the back of Lai Mengmeng's hand. The cold tip of the needle pierced his body, and Lai Mengmeng felt a real, piercing pain, and he couldn't help screaming, ow 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 ow. He realized that his hand was actually bleeding. Seeing Lai Mengmeng bleeding and clearly feeling the pain, Wang Ling finally realized that there was something fishy about this game. This illusion spell was very abnormal. Normal illusions would automatically be broken when the target felt pain, but this illusion was obviously more advanced. It was an illusion that could enter deep into one's consciousness. He was now 100% sure that this escape definitely wasn't the escape that Lai Mengmeng had seen, but a death game in the guise of a game. Borrowing the USB flash drive from earlier, everyone who had accepted this game had entered the illusion world. Was this a prank? Wang Ling's gaze abruptly turned serious. In that brief moment just now, he had already thought of a way to break this illusion spell and leave easily. But the other people trapped in the game couldn't intervene. He had to think of a way to help Lai Mengmeng break the illusion, but unfortunately, Lai Mengmeng was still completely unaware of the seriousness of the problem. This damn homebody touched the spot where the old man had just stabbed him and asked, "What did you inject me with?" "Heh heh heh, does it hurt?" The old man sneered. "I injected you with a neurovirus just now. It will flare up when you're 24. If you can survive to the last stage, you'll get a hint about the antidote." Wang Ling narrowed his eyes. Sure enough, everything was as he had thought, this poison was real. He could clearly see the traces of the neurotoxin entering Lai Mengmeng's body through the blood vessels on the back of his hand. Heh heh heh, now. The old man finally turned to Wang Ling, and at the same time fiercely stabbed the syringe into Wang Ling's hand. "It's your turn." But very quickly, the old man realized a very serious problem. He realized that his needle couldn't go in at all. Chapter 266. For a moment, the situation was awkward. When the old man took the syringe back, he saw that the needle had been stabbed crookedly, and his face instantly turned black, like pickled mustard in soy sauce. When all was said and done, he was just an NPC, and couldn't think about something that was beyond his understanding. Because according to the game's plot, he would inject neurotoxin into everyone who entered the game world in the car, and then place them in a mental hospital. Surrounded by zombies, they would find a way to escape from the mental hospital, and finally find the antidote. Thus, the old man could only continue to stab Wang Ling's hand with the syringe like wet nurse Rome had done. In the end, the old man ran out of syringes. The old man looked at Wang Ling's slender and long fingers, then at the smooth and clean back of his hand, and finally chose to give up thinking. Wang Ling, Lai Mengmeng. About 5 minutes later, the ambulance slowly drove through the iron gates of the mental hospital. The hospital looked very shabby, and because the game was set at night, coupled with the shadows of the trees and the strange cries, the entire atmosphere of the game looked even more terrifying. After the ambulance drove through the large iron gates of the mental hospital, Wang Ling and Lai Mengmeng found old newspapers scattered by the fountain in the center of the hospital. According to the usual pattern in games, these old newspapers usually recorded some information about the plot. It turned out that the old man had probably explained this information after the injection. But because the needle hadn't gone in, the old man in the ambulance had crashed, just like that. Lai Mengmeng was utterly shocked. He had never thought that there would actually be such a strange bug. Picking up the newspaper, Lai Mengmeng analyzed some useful information. This plot should be the same as the main storyline in the trailer. This mental hospital has been infected by a biochemical virus, and all the patients have turned into monsters. What we need to do is to do our best to avoid the monsters in the mental hospital, search for clues about the antidote, and finally escape from the mental hospital. Lai Mengmeng pointed to the main entrance of the hospital. After we enter from here, we should be able to find a night vision camera and several batteries in one of the wards. According to God King's mission instructions, you'll get points for completing the mission, which you can use to recharge the batteries. Hearing this, Wang Ling nodded. The plot of the game was quite conventional, but the main point was that it wasn't a simple game. There were injuries and deaths in the game. Therefore, if they wanted to break the illusion of others, the key was to find the Lord God who ruled the game. Wang Ling quietly opened his heavenly eye and saw all kinds of laws interweaving in the game world. Clearly, this was a game set up by a powerful being. Above the deity transformation stage were the tribulation stage, the void refinement stage, and so on. However, there were three major stages, which were collectively known as the enlightened being, the itinerant immortal, and the true immortal. And this world had been set up by itinerant immortals. Although they weren't on the same level as General E and the others, they still couldn't be underestimated. Wang Ling's understanding of the prime gods was a law of nothingness, and it was very difficult to capture the prime gods' true forms when they were in mimicry mode. Wang Ling sighed silently. The only thing he could do now was to wait for the Lord God to show himself and then look for an opportunity. While he was thinking, another ambulance drove in from the iron gate. It was the other team that the strange old man in the ambulance had mentioned. Oh yeah, what is this place? Wang Ling saw a fat man clamoring as he got out of the first ambulance, and behind him was a young man in a white shirt. Wang Ling's eyebrows instantly twitched when he saw the two of them. He hadn't expected this team to actually be Fatty Luo and grenade-throwing senior immortal. Why are Brother Ling and Brother Song here too? The moment the young man in white saw Wang Ling and Lai Mengmeng, he was instantly pleasantly surprised. Because he had visited the Wang family many times before, grenade-throwing senior immortal was quite familiar with Lai Mengmeng. This was great senior Wang's, and his real name was Song Zikai. It was impossible for him to forget. It was clear that grenade-throwing senior immortal was already considered a semi-acquaintance of Lai Mengmeng. Although they didn't usually talk much, they often ran into each other at the Wang family's small villa. How did you get in? Lai Mengmeng asked curiously. I was in Fatty Luo's shop this morning, and he suddenly received this express delivery. We wanted to open it to take a look, but then somehow came in. Grenade-throwing senior immortal smiled and scratched his head. In the ambulance just now, there was an old man who wanted to stab us with a needle. Then, I acted in a little self-defense. Wang Ling glanced over. Then, he noticed grenade-throwing senior immortal's ambulance. He saw that the old man in the back of the ambulance had also crashed, and his body was full of syringes. Wang Ling, based on the normal development of the plot, it should have been as Lai Mengmeng had said. After the NPC old man in the ambulance had injected the neurotoxin and taken the patient to the mental hospital, the subsequent developments would have unfolded. According to the game's plot, after the old man had been injected with the neurotoxin, the game would have directly manipulated the ambulance to directly smash open the main gate of the mental hospital. Unfortunately, before the plot could unfold normally, the two old NPC men had already died one after the other. In front of the hospital, Fatty Luo looked around, his expression a little gloomy. Whether it was Fatty Luo or grenade-throwing senior immortal, the moment they entered this game, they already knew that this wasn't a normal game. This game was based on the original Outlast, but had been remodeled, and even the developer was different. I'm very sorry to have dragged you into this. This was probably directed at me. Fatty Luo's expression was a little gloomy. Why are you so sure, Brother Luo? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal found it a little strange. 2 days ago, I received a threatening letter, but I didn't take it seriously at the time. Fatty Luo laughed. But I never thought that the other party would actually use this kind of method to force me to come here. I heard that my peers in the weaponsmithing circle also received the same letter. So I'm guessing that apart from the 4 of us, there should be other people. What's their purpose? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked. Their purpose is still unclear, but what's certain is that they're looking for a smith. Anyone who has anything to do with refining weapons has been dragged into this. You came to my shop before, so you must have been affected as well. Fatty Luo narrowed his eyes. This illusion spell is very powerful. We probably won't be able to get out with our strength alone. For now, we can only follow the plot of this game and see what happens. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal looked at Lai Mengmeng with a serious expression. Brother Song, don't worry. We'll protect you. However, Lai Mengmeng didn't seem to be aware of the danger. This damn homebody stood in front of the door, his eyes fixed on the tightly shut door of the mental hospital as he asked, then how do we get in now? According to the plot, it should be that old man who drove the ambulance directly through the door. Is this the only way to trigger the plot? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal rubbed his chin. In theory, yes. Lai Mengmeng nodded without hesitation. Hearing this, a relieved expression appeared on Wang Ling's face. Actually, this made things easier. After Lai Mengmeng said this, he saw Wang Ling walk toward the ambulance behind him. He saw Wang Ling pick up one of the ambulances and throw it straight at the hospital's main entrance with one arm like a rubber ball. Boom. The main entrance of the hospital was smashed open. Chapter 267. This voice sounded extremely like an illusion. There was a faint sense of reality in the nothingness, as though someone was breathing right next to his ear. Lai Mengmeng couldn't help but tremble. Why did he hear the words Motherf **Ker? Who on earth was talking? But Lai Mengmeng already had no way to investigate the truth of the matter, because the main gate of the mental hospital had already been smashed open by the ambulance. Although he knew that Wang Ling was studying at a Foundation Establishment high school, when he saw Wang Ling lift an ambulance with his own eyes, he still couldn't help feeling the impact of the image. Wow! Are all Foundation Establishment high school students this strong? It was clear that Lai Mengmeng knew nothing about Wang Ling. Only Fatty Luo and Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's lips twitched at the same time when they heard this, because not all Foundation Establishment cultivators were this strong, and Wang Ling was the only one who was this strong. Lai Mengmeng wasn't an outsider, and was very familiar with Father Wang. But it had already become an unspoken rule to not reveal Wang Ling's true realm to someone who didn't know the situation. Both Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Fatty Luo were well aware of this, so when they saw Wang Ling and Lai Mengmeng, they addressed him as Brother Ling. The main gate of the hospital was successfully smashed open by the ambulance, and the game plot progressed smoothly. After Wang Ling and the others entered the main gate, they saw the back of a figure with disheveled hair. It looked like a girl who was still wearing the blue and white striped hospital gown, but it was obvious that she wasn't in a normal state of mind. She stood in a corner with her back to Wang Ling and the others as she muttered something to herself. This scene was quite horrifying. Not only was this a game of death, it was also one that combined horror elements. Even though Wang Ling had always felt that he wouldn't be scared, this feeling made him a little uncomfortable. In contrast, Lai Mengmeng was clearly a veteran of many battles. He looked very excited as he directly walked over to the girl. She should be able to lead us to the room where we found the night vision camera. Based on how the plot develops, after we find the camera, the hospital's last remaining power source will be cut off. We can only rely on the night vision camera to continue triggering the plot. This game is really troublesome. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sighed. If the plot could only be triggered by the night vision camera, then the sky eye would not be as useful in this environment. Next, we just need to touch this girl and we should be able to trigger the plot. Lai Mengmeng reached out and pressed the girl's thin shoulder. The next moment, the girl turned to look at him as if she had been electrocuted. Her slightly loose hair parted slightly, and Lai Mengmeng could clearly see the madwoman's distorted face. Her face was festering as if it had been burned. She howled madly, and from this angle, the crazy woman's mutated shark teeth could be clearly seen. Lai Mengmeng had long since gotten used to these kinds of jump scares in games, but in this incomparably realistic environment, he was still so scared that he started panting heavily. He was so frightened that he retracted his hand, but this crazy woman grabbed his arm even faster. Lai Mengmeng had never imagined that this girl with such a thin and weak body would actually have such great strength. Not good. Grenade-throwing senior immortal cried out in alarm, but it was already too late. The crazy woman had already firmly gripped Lai Mengmeng's arm, and then she opened her mouth and bit down viciously with her sharp, bloody teeth. There was a crack, and very quickly, the crazy woman's eyes widened in astonishment, because she saw a golden light wrap around Lai Mengmeng's arm, and the moment she bit down, the golden light had shattered her teeth. In just a split second, her teeth had been lost. Lai Mengmeng, grenade-throwing senior immortal, Fatty Luo, even Wang Ling couldn't deny that there were times when karma really was a very magical thing. If Lai Mengmeng hadn't gone through the script with Father Wang, he wouldn't have forgotten to take a shower for a few days and been asked by Mother Wang to wash himself clean. If he hadn't washed himself clean, he wouldn't have changed into the long johns that Mother Wang had given him. If he hadn't changed into the long johns, the crazy woman's teeth wouldn't have fallen out. Fortunately, although the crazy woman's teeth had all fallen out, the plot still unfolded smoothly. What kind of scene was this? A toothless crazy woman leading the way with a lifeless expression on her face was a miracle to Wang Ling from the bottom of his heart. So far, the plot is exactly the same as when I played the game back then. As Lai Mengmeng had said, the crazy woman led them to the door of a small room, and then silently left on her own. We should be able to find the night vision camera that will trigger the plot from here. Grenade-throwing senior immortal nodded. Worried that something unforeseen would happen again, he was the first to open the door this time. However, nothing happened in the room this time, and it was unexpectedly quiet. Fatty Luo found the night vision camera that Lai Mengmeng had mentioned on the floor, as well as a hospital report. Because he had played the trial version of the game, Lai Mengmeng was very familiar with the contents of the report. If I remember correctly, this report has something to do with that crazy woman from before. The plot in the trial version was a simplified version, but now we can finally take a good look at the main plot. What does it say? Asked grenade-throwing senior immortal. Simply put, according to what's written in the report, this crazy woman was hospitalized because she suffered domestic violence back then and went insane. Before she entered the mental hospital, her husband had been beating her with a magic weapon the whole time. She used all her strength to bite my right arm before, which was actually a form of resistance to domestic violence after she went insane. Speaking up to this point, Lai Mengmeng recalled the terrifying scene when the crazy woman had bitten him, and he couldn't help shuddering. There's also information about her husband in this report. Her husband is a professional game player, but because he often loses matches and has a bad temper, he has developed the habit of beating his wife. Scumbag. Fatty Luo and grenade-throwing senior immortal said in unison. In fact, the outbreak of the biochemical crisis in the hospital was also caused by this crazy woman's husband. After the media exposed it, the madwoman's husband was diagnosed with mania, so he was also sent to a mental hospital for treatment. But during his treatment, he tried to escape the mental hospital many times. One time, when he was hiding in the psychiatric laboratory, he accidentally knocked over a box containing a virus. That was how the biochemical crisis started. Speaking up to this point, Lai Mengmeng suddenly looked surprised. The report actually mentions the magic weapon this man used to beat his wife? What magic weapon? Fatty Luo was very curious. Lai Mengmeng, it's called Death Announcement? Grenade-throwing senior immortal. Chapter 268. Death Proclamation? What's that? Grenade-throwing senior immortal thought the name was a little familiar. This can be considered a relatively famous modern magic treasure. It's shaped like a keyboard. Fatty Luo seemed to have heard of it before. It seems that you can raise your rage points by constantly smashing things. Wang Ling already didn't have the energy to ridicule this magic treasure and the plot between the female lunatic and her husband. But no matter how the game plot unfolded, before the game god revealed himself, Wang Ling wouldn't be able to directly track down the other party's true body after he turned into a pile of data. At that moment, Wang Ling suddenly thought of Little Black's benefits. It would be great if Little Black was here, then they could work together to catch the god. But now, the only way was to wait for the god of this game to lose his cool and reveal a flaw first. After Lai Mengmeng picked up the night vision camera, the entire mental hospital went completely dark. Whether it was the rooms or the corridors, everything became pitch black. Even as a veteran otaku player, Lai Mengmeng couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. TSK, that's a little scary. Brother Luo, have you sensed anyone else's aura? Asked grenade-throwing senior immortal. Not yet. Fatty Luo frowned. I suspect that the other people entered a different game space than we did. We still don't know the goal of the mastermind behind the scenes, but for him to be able to set up such a big trap, he definitely isn't simple. What should we do next? That's the end of the trial. According to the plot, we should explore the place with this night vision camera. We'll find some clues and continue the plot. The female lunatic's husband and the ward number were specifically written in the appraisal report just now. I think we can go there and explore a little. Lai Mengmeng sorted out his thoughts and said. I saw the trailer before, and it seems that zombies will appear after we get the night vision camera. The game will design some iron cabinets and oil drums in the plot, so when we encounter zombies, it's best to hide in them. Grenade-throwing senior immortal, we still have to hide? Wouldn't it be better to just kill them? Lai Mengmeng. You can try. Just as Lai Mengmeng had said, Outlast would indeed arrange for some zombies to hinder the development of the plot. The weakest were the normal soldiers like the crazy woman from before. Above them were the zombies whose appearance had completely mutated. They were also known as fatties. The last level was the gecko people. These zombies could use the walls to crawl at high speeds on their four limbs. In the trial version, some players also called it Voldemort. Holding the night vision camera, Lai Mengmeng walked along the corridor. When he saw the metal cabinet in the corridor, he stopped. Be careful, there's something ahead. Although Lai Mengmeng was just an ordinary person, he was still quite observant. When he saw the metal cabinet set up in the game appear next to him, he immediately knew that the road ahead wasn't going to be peaceful. Actually, from a long distance away, Wang Ling had already sensed that there were more than 10 minions hiding in the rooms to the right of the iron cabinet. As soon as Wang Ling walked over, they would immediately rush out. Grenade-throwing senior immortal said softly, Brother Song, don't be afraid, I'll go take a look. Just as he walked past the iron cabinet on the side, a large group of figures immediately burst out of the rooms in front of them and staggered toward them. Holy shit! So many of them. Are they going to hide in the cabinet? They're definitely going to hide in the cabinet, right? Lai Mengmeng was startled by this scene. Sure enough, the shock of seeing a group of zombies charge toward him on the screen was completely different from when he was facing an army of zombies head-on. Brother Song, don't panic, I'll directly F***CK them up. Boom! Grenade-throwing senior immortal threw a skybomb grenade at the zombies in front of them. Instantly, golden light shone in all directions and lightning flashed. A large number of zombies in front of them were blown to bits, but not all of them were dead. Some whose heads hadn't been blown off were still using their arms to crawl in their direction. Even if they were just a bunch of random soldiers, their regenerative abilities were amazing. As long as their brains were still intact, their bodies could continuously regenerate. Those zombies that had their lower bodies destroyed could only crawl for less than half a meter, and their new bodies had already reformed in the process of moving forward. Grenade-throwing senior immortal didn't say much. He directly strode forward and chopped off the heads of these minions with one slash of his sword. Sure enough, you still have to chop off their heads to fight these things? Fatty Luo smiled slightly and also joined the fight. He was even more violent than grenade throwing as he stretched out his hand and directly crushed the heads of these minions. The average realm of a smith actually wasn't high, and it could be said that there were very few people like Fatty Luo who could balance their realm and cultivation. Thus, it was very rare for a smith to be able to protect themselves in this kind of situation. From a distance, Wang Ling and Lai Mengmeng saw that the heads of these minions were so fragile in Fatty Luo's hands that they turned into pissing beef balls with one squeeze. Because of the skybomb grenade that grenade-throwing senior immortal had thrown earlier, the nearby zombie minions had heard the commotion and come over, and more zombies had gathered. These zombies have probably been strengthened again. Their recovery abilities are too strong. After a while of slaughter, grenade-throwing senior immortal and Fatty Luo started to pant as they realized a very serious problem. In this game space, which had been combined with an illusion spell, there was a serious lack of spirit energy. They had been consuming it all this time, and if they didn't replenish it, they would run out sooner or later. Because of the lack of spirit energy, Fatty Luo was clearly feeling a little weak. Suddenly, there was a loud rumble in front of them, and a figure was swiftly approaching them. A big guy is coming. Fatty Luo's eyes widened in disbelief. This was a Voldemort, and it was astonishingly fast. Fatty Luo couldn't keep up with it. Although he didn't know how strong this Voldemort was, in terms of speed alone, it had already surpassed the soul formation stage. After all, this was an illusion set up by an itinerant immortal almighty, and the situation was more troublesome than grenade-throwing senior immortal had expected. Let's hide in the cupboard, how about? Lai Mengmeng suggested again. But before Lai Mengmeng could finish speaking, Wang Ling had already stepped forward. This Voldemort had come in a menacing manner. Its limbs were well developed, and the tendons in its arms and legs were as solid as a horned dragon's. Its eyes were already distorted, and the corners of its eyes were completely torn apart to reveal the whites of its eyes. Its dark red pupils stared straight at Wang Ling, meeting his gaze. A few seconds later, this Voldemort instantly broke out in a cold sweat. Then it straightaway turned its head, opened the iron cupboard at the back, and directly shrank inside. Seeing this scene, Lai Mengmeng's mind instantly flashed with a black question mark emoji. According to the game mechanism, shouldn't they be hiding in the cupboard? Chapter 269. As Lai Mengmeng had said, the zombies in Escape were divided into 3 categories: minions, fatties, and the last category, Voldemort. Like in conventional zombie blockbusters, zombies lacked intelligence. The reason why Voldemort was ranked the highest in the game wasn't just because of its extremely fast movement speed. The most important thing was that Voldemort still retained some intelligence and knew how to judge danger. So the moment it met Wang Ling's gaze, the Voldemort's thoughts began to spin, and the scenes in its mind flashed past like a movie. It was often said that no matter what kind of creature it was, some beautiful things would flash before their eyes when they faced death, but this Voldemort very quickly came to its senses. At the same time, sweat poured out like a fountain, and it began to avert Wang Ling's gaze, whether intentionally or unintentionally. That was just a teenager who didn't seem to have any lethality, but intuition told Voldemort that this person was very dangerous and that it would die. In that instant, Voldemort felt a great sense of oppression. Every step Wang Ling took toward it made it feel an invisible pressure, as if an invisible force was strangling its throat. So in the next moment, Voldemort made a decision: hide in the cabinet. As for why it hid in the cabinet, because the game itself was designed this way. Apart from some traps in the game's plot, cabinets in the early stages of the game were basically safe zones. Thus, Voldemort felt very safe hiding in the cabinet. But very quickly, this Voldemort died. Lai Mengmeng didn't even see how it had died at all. He just saw Wang Ling open the cabinet from a distance of about 2 or 3 meters away. Wang Ling gently squeezed his palm, and with a bang, green blood directly burst out. Although Lai Mengmeng didn't understand exactly what had happened, he could basically tell that this was probably the legendary open cabinet kill, but it seemed like the plot was the other way around. According to the game's plot, shouldn't it be the zombies who opened the cabinet? Open cabinet kill also had to follow the basic rules. After dealing with this Voldemort, Wang Ling gently placed his hands on Fatty Luo and grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's shoulders. In a flash, the after-effects of not paying attention to replenishing his spirit energy, which had resulted in him using up too much spirit energy, instantly disappeared. "I've recovered." Fatty Luo clenched his fists and once again sighed in his heart at Wang Ling's strength. Although people in the circle had always called Wang Ling a perfected person, Fatty Luo had once doubted Wang Ling's true realm, or rather, his true strength, which was far from being as simple as a perfected person. In the habitual thinking of most cultivators, the level represented everything, but in fact, it was not. Every cultivator had their own latent source of power. This source of power would not normally be triggered, but it could often display great power at critical moments. Because of this, the cultivation world had always been full of all kinds of legends about people who could fight beyond their level. As for how great Wang Ling's potential source of power was, both Fatty Luo and grenade-throwing felt that it was a mystery. Wang Ling looked ahead. The originally empty corridor was littered with broken corpses, and the walls were stained red with blood from the explosion. This scene was extremely impactful. Lai Mengmeng didn't know exactly what had happened, he only knew that he and Wang Ling seemed to have gotten into trouble together. However, this was a matter of the cultivation circle after all, and Lai Mengmeng felt that it was too far away from him. And no matter what happened, the most important thing now was that he couldn't leave. Lai Mengmeng frowned and looked a little worried. "Brother Song, just think of this as a game. Leave the rest to us," grenade-throwing Senior Immortal comforted him on the side. Lai Mengmeng swallowed and his Adam's apple bobbed as he said, "We've taken care of this bunch of minions on the first floor. Let's go to that crazy woman's husband's ward first and see if there are any other clues." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Fatty Luo nodded, and under Lai Mengmeng's lead, they hurried to the second floor of the hospital. Lai Mengmeng was the only person who had played the demo version of this game. Although it was just a simplified version of the plot, the game map was the same, and he was relatively familiar with the environment. Along the way, Lai Mengmeng didn't know why his footsteps had become a lot lighter. When he walked, he felt as if there was a force supporting him under his feet. Even the feeling of stepping on the ground had become different. There was a kind of soft feeling. Furthermore, he realized that the puncture on the back of his hand, which had been pricked by the needle outside the hospital, had actually healed. In fact, this was the effect of the protective light membrane that Wang Ling had cast on him. Although Lai Mengmeng was wearing long johns, his head, hands and feet weren't protected. Wang Ling didn't know what other accidents might happen in this situation, so he simply wrapped a membrane around Lai Mengmeng. As long as this membrane wasn't pierced, there was no need to worry about Lai Mengmeng's safety at all. When they reached the top of the stairs to the second floor, Lai Mengmeng held the night vision camera and looked at the wall strangely. He noticed that there was something on the wall that looked like a pattern, but in the demo version, it had clearly been a white wall. I don't think I've seen this before." Lai Mengmeng pointed at the pattern. Fatty Luo also noticed it, and his eyes instantly narrowed. Because this pattern wasn't simple. Wang Ling took a closer look and saw that under the seemingly messy and disorderly arrangement, all the patterns had been arranged in an orderly fashion to form an array pattern. This was a complicated operation that could only be used when setting up a huge array. Wang Ling seemed to have already understood the trick of the game's illusion spell. After the USB drive had been linked to the computer, the powerful illusion spell that the other party had refracted through the computer screen was actually just a pretense. The real end point was the Taoist spell array that had been implanted in the game. This kind of array could turn an illusory world into an independent space. In other words, the game world they were currently in was actually a real space that had been transformed by an array. It was a little similar to a small world, but its spatial structure and nomological laws were simpler. Furthermore, through this array pattern, Wang Ling could already confirm Fatty Luo's previous guess. They weren't the only group that had been sucked into this game space. The space formed by this array was a parallel structure, and there were other people in the same environment but in a different space. Wang Ling gazed deeply at this array pattern, and Fatty Luo and grenade-throwing Senior Immortal were also lost in deep thought. Fatty Luo stretched out his hand and gently stroked it. he could clearly feel a bump on the surface. Chapter 270. Has Brother Luo seen this array before? Asked grenade-throwing senior immortal. Actually, he also felt that this array seemed a little familiar. There had been a similar photo on the news more than 10 years ago, but he couldn't recall it. Senior immortal, do you remember the Heavenly God primary school incident from 12 years ago? Fatty Luo suddenly mentioned a key term. Next to him, Fatty Luo and Lai Mengmeng were suddenly enlightened. Only Wang Ling was stupefied. Heavenly God primary school incident? What was that? 12 years ago, he had only been 4 years old at the time, right? It was a major terrorist attack back then. A group of children were teleported to an old primary school building, and at the behest of the person who had cast the array, the children who had been caught in the illusion ended up killing each other inside. Fatty Luo frowned. The reason why I'm so sure this is the same array pattern that was captured in the news back then is because there's something similar between the incident back then and today's. The parents of the children who were killed back then were all weaponsmiths. Heavenly God Primary School was also a very famous training school for weaponsmiths back then. Sure enough, everything has to do with weaponsmiths. Grenade-throwing senior immortal sighed. Lai Mengmeng felt like he had heard something incredible. He remembered that he had only graduated from university a few years ago when the incident happened. But it seems that someone survived, right? There was indeed one person who survived the incident back then. She was the teacher of that group of children. But according to the police investigation, the teacher wasn't a suspect in the incident, and was also one of the victims, Fatty Luo said as he rubbed his chin. Then how did this teacher escape? I heard that the teacher made a sword out of mud on the spot, and with one slash she directly split open the space. But unfortunately, it took her too long to make the sword out of mud, and she wasn't able to save the children. Made a sword out of mud? Wang Ling's eyebrows twitched slightly as he suddenly recalled what Boss Tan had said about the little girl who had made the stone ghost mask out of mud. But could it be the same person? When they entered the second floor, Wang Ling could clearly feel that there were fewer random soldiers here than on the first floor. During the fierce battle on the first floor just now, grenade-throwing senior immortal skybomb grenade had probably attracted the minions on the second floor to the first floor, and they had been eliminated in passing. Although there were still 3 or 4 of them hiding in the dark on the second floor, they were nothing to be afraid of. On the way, Lai Mengmeng held the night vision camera and curiously observed the surrounding scenery, afraid that he would leave behind a clue similar to the array pattern from before. Seeing Wang Ling walking silently at the front on his own, he suddenly turned around and asked Fatty Luo and grenade-throwing senior immortal curiously, "By the way, how do Brother Grenade-throwing and this fat uncle know our Ling Ling?" The corners of Fatty Luo's mouth twitched. "My full name is Luo Chuang. Also, I'm actually the same age as your brother Grenade-throwing." This time, it was Lai Mengmeng's mouth that twitched. Fatty Luo really looked too old. He had thought that the gap between cultivators and ordinary people was actually very big, but after careful observation, Lai Mengmeng suddenly felt that this wasn't the case. Whether it was cultivators or ordinary people, there was always someone who looked like a parent, but was actually a student. Lai Mengmeng suddenly recalled his youth when he had been at school. Sighing in his heart, Lai Mengmeng corrected the way he addressed them before asking, "Then, Brother Grenade-throwing and Brother Luo, how do you know our Ling Ling?" In Lai Mengmeng's opinion, Wang Ling was actually a rather cold and aloof person, the kind of person who didn't make friends very easily. Lai Mengmeng remembered that when he had first entered the Wang family, he had taken the initiative to greet Wang Ling a few times, but Wang Ling had always had an expressionless expression on his face. It always reminded Lai Mengmeng of those emotionless statues of gods that he had worshipped in the temple during the New Year. The expression on his face was exactly the same. "Do you know about a thing called a forum?" Speaking of his friendship with Wang Ling, it was before the chat group had been set up, when the cultivation forum had just been set up, and it actually took a long time to talk about it. Grenade-throwing senior immortal thought for a bit. "I remember back then, when our forum was first set up, it was a big hit on the internet. Because some big shots would often come to the forum to hold online seminars, it attracted a lot of school students. After that, some schools specially bought the copyright for our online seminars and made them into handouts for students to use. Over time, there were a lot of advertisers who wanted to sponsor our forum and invest in it. Then, there was a small snack manufacturer who sold crispy noodle snacks. Oh. Lai Mengmeng suddenly understood. When he heard this, or to be exact, when he heard the words, crispy noodle snacks, Lai Mengmeng was already completely aware of what had happened. Senior Immortal and Brother Ling's friendship is naturally very deep. I only met him recently. Fatty Luo looked at Lai Mengmeng and chuckled. By the way, what do you think of Brother Ling, Brother Song? Lai Mengmeng cupped his chin in his hand as he thought carefully. Then, covering his mouth, he whispered in grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's ear, actually, I've always felt that he's a pretty cool person on the inside. When I look for him online, he always sends me ellipses. Brother Grenade Throwing, don't you think that all cool people on the inside like to send ellipses? Grenade Throwing Senior Immortal almost couldn't agree with this, and nodded repeatedly like a chicken pecking at rice. At that moment, the two of them reached a consensus. Just like Lai Mengmeng had said, Grenade Throwing felt that chatting with Wang Ling was too much effort. Every time, he had to figure out Wang Ling's intentions from those ellipses. Apart from that, our Ling Ling is actually a pretty good kid. He's handsome, has long legs, and has a good brain. The key is that you only need to give him a few crispy noodle snacks to keep him alive. Raising Wang Ling at home saves both worry and money. The only bad thing about him is that you can't touch him carelessly, otherwise he might explode. Staring at Wang Ling's back, Lai Mengmeng heaved a deep sigh. If only Ling Ling was a cat, I would definitely hug and suck it every day. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, Fatty Luo. After Lai Mengmeng said this, the scene clearly fell into a dead silence. Roughly 2 minutes later, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal copied Lai Mengmeng's action of covering his mouth just now and whispered in his ear, I'll tell you a secret. Lai Mengmeng? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, Brother Ling might be quite far away from us, but at this distance, he can actually hear what we're saying. Looking in Wang Ling's direction, Lai Mengmeng abruptly realized that Wang Ling had actually quickened his pace. Chapter 271. There was a village between Jinghua City and Songhai City. After leaving Songhai City, Boss Tan's younger brother, Tan Xian, had headed straight for this place. The mountain behind the village was called Nine Boundaries Mountain, and there was a modern Taoist temple on it. This was actually one of Immortal Mansion's strongholds. Given Tan Xian's current rank, he had absolutely no idea where Immortal Mansion's headquarters was located. Only when he became the Eastern Branch's chief would he be able to find out the location of Immortal Mansion's headquarters during the high-level meeting that was held once every 10 years. 2 days after his return, Tan Xian used the bottle of sleeping pills that Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had given him to perfectly suppress his Panwu Immortal Martial Arts addiction. The Panwu Immortal Martial Arts was a forbidden art that consumed a cultivator's essence, qi, and spirit, numbed the body, and stimulated the 9 orifices' spirit points to hypnotize themselves. The most difficult problem to solve was its addiction. Sure enough, as his big brother Tan Siming had said, although his strength had weakened a lot after he stopped cultivating the Panwu Immortal Martial Arts, his mental state was clearly much better. That day, the sleeping pills wore off, and Tan Xian woke up from his deep sleep. When he returned to the backyard, he heard the Eastern Branch chief cursing in his room. Just as he stepped inside, he saw a large screen in the room. The Eastern Branch chief was sitting in front of it and working frantically on a controller. Tan Xian? You're here just in time. Quick, help me take a look. What on earth is the problem? Tan Xian stared at the screen in bewilderment. What's this? A moment later, his pupils abruptly dilated, because he actually saw Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal on the screen. Knowing that Tan Xian had come in, the chief didn't even turn his head. This is the first step in Master's master plan. Using the USB drive to secretly cast a great illusion spell in conjunction with a space array, we can gather all the currently known weaponsmiths together and find the strongest one. But because there are too many spaces, Master can't manage them all on his own, so we're in charge of this space now. We can use the controller to modify the settings of this space at will. Tan Qian understood. To put it bluntly, the current Eastern Branch Chief was actually the god behind this space. It was very obvious that this was a big deal. Tan Qian's impression was that anything that involved grenade-throwing senior immortal, this great death-courting senior, in the cultivation circle, definitely wasn't simple. The Eastern Branch Chief pointed to a fat man on the screen. This time, our target is this person. The boss of Fatty Luo's metal tools, Luo Chuang, came from a family of blacksmiths and wasn't weak either. However, he had accidentally brought Great Death-Courting Senior along when he was opening up the space. In order to test the strength of the owner of the villa that I asked you to investigate last time, I also sent a USB flash drive to that villa. Realization instantly dawned on Tan Qian. He knew that legendary Ling Zhenren might also be involved in this matter. Although he had never seen this Ling Zhenren in person, he had seen his spirit sword, which had almost turned him into a salt and pepper mantis shrimp with one slash. Even if Tan Qian hadn't seen Wang Ling's strength for himself, he had already had an idea at that time. This person was not simple. Tan Qian even felt that Ling Zhenren was stronger than the master of Immortal Mansion. Tan Qian couldn't help breaking out in a cold sweat. So, what's the problem now, Chief? The Eastern Branch Chief's face was very black, and could completely be described as scorched earth. There's a popular game called PlayerUnknown's Battleground recently. Have you played it? Tan Qian. I have, but I'm a noob. Then, the Eastern Branch Chief sank into deep thought. He cupped his chin in his hands and pondered for a long time before replying, I'm now controlling this space, and I feel like I've encountered an immortal who can suck people in, lock on, accelerate, and self-destruct. Tan Qian, Eastern Branch Chief, not only were the minions I summoned in the space instantly killed by the other party, even the strengthened Voldemort I created were so scared that they turned around and ran. Tan Qian, Eastern Branch Chief, furthermore, this group of people doesn't play according to the game's plot at all. They wreak havoc in the space without the slightest scruple. Tan Qian, was this done by that Great Death-Courting Senior? It was done by the person in that villa. The point is that I don't even know who he is. As he said this, the Eastern Branch Chief switched the screen to Wang Ling, and then Tan Qian saw a huge mosaic on the screen. At that moment, the great shielding spell was once again put to good use. In the game space, Wang Ling couldn't help sneezing. He vaguely sensed that someone was talking about him behind his back. But now wasn't the time to care. According to the plot, Lai Mengmeng successfully led Wang Ling and the others to the ward where the woman's husband was staying. The array patterns that had been engraved on the wall on the first floor actually extended all the way here. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal crouched down and stroked the array patterns as he carefully felt them out. Brother Ling, this set of array patterns seems a little different from the ones we've seen before. The minute difference between the array patterns was an indescribable feeling. Only cultivators who had cultivated for more than 1,000 years could clearly sense it. The array patterns of a large magic array were usually laid out in sections. They might look messy, but they also had a core. This is the core array pattern. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal stared at the array pattern with a confident expression. As long as we cut off this core array pattern, we can at least block this great illusion spell and affect the order of the space. Who knows, we might be able to get out. But it won't be easy to cut off the array pattern. This is the core array pattern set up by an itinerant immortal, and they must have added a recovery property to it. It's best if we can directly cut it off at the root, otherwise it might grow back. Fatty Luo frowned. But we don't have any weapons with us right now. My magic treasures are all in the shop. Now that we're trapped in this space, the connection between our magic treasures has failed, and we can't directly summon them over. At that moment, both of them turned to look at Wang Ling at almost the same time. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, Brother Ling, do you have a solution? Wang Ling nodded, his eyes fixed on the air. A moment later, there was a wave of energy that shook the air and the ground. Fatty Luo and Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal were extremely astonished, this momentum was really too great. It imperceptibly gave rise to a great sense of oppression. Furthermore, this aura was very familiar, and they already knew what was going to happen. In just a few seconds, a crack actually appeared in the air in front of Wang Ling's eyes, and endless sword chi poured out of it to sweep through the space. Chapter 272. The space shook violently, and dust fell from the ceiling. The familiar brownish-yellow sword light seeped out of the crack in the air and directly illuminated the entire space. In a normal situation, spirit swords were invisible to ordinary people, and Lai Mengmeng couldn't see them at all. But Jinka was very special, because it looked like a peachwood sword that could be found everywhere on the market to ward off evil spirits. Fatty Luo had just discovered this, and he was especially surprised. Lord Jinka. Jinka. The moment he saw Jinka appear, Fatty Luo's voice trembled. He was too excited and marveled at Wang Ling's ability. What kind of power was this to be able to tear open a crack in this completely isolated space and summon a spirit sword by force? Fatty Luo felt that this was already completely beyond his understanding. The moment Jinka was summoned, Grenade throwing very tacitly tapped Lai Mengmeng's neck lightly and used an acupoint to directly knock him out. An ordinary person wouldn't be able to withstand the mental pressure of tearing open a crack in space to summon a spirit sword. This was no longer a physical attack that Long Johns or Long Johns could withstand. If Lai Mengmeng was affected here, it was very likely that he would suffer from dementia in his later years, too strong. When Fatty Luo saw Jinka firmly gripped in Wang Ling's hand as sword chi continued to erupt in the air, he felt his face tremble uncontrollably. This aura had come and gone very quickly. Fatty Luo felt that Jinka was really too cool, and that it was a perfect match for Ling Jinren. When Wang Ling held Jinka and their auras blended together, there was actually a feeling of being one with nature. This was a higher realm than being one with the sword. When will I be able to have a magic treasure as compatible as Lord Jinka and Ling Jinren's? Fatty Luo blinked, his heart full of envy. After all, this kind of thing could only be encountered by chance. He had collected and made a lot of magic treasures, but the problem of compatibility wasn't something that could be solved through simple forging. The compatibility between a spirit sword and its owner was a very profound subject. Fatty Luo felt that in layman's terms, it was like choosing a wife by looking at the 8 characters of the horoscope. After 10 breaths, the space was finally completely calm. Holding Jinka in his hand, Wang Ling aimed the blade at the array pattern on the ground. Just as he was about to slash down, the runes seemed to come to life and moved on their own. Not good, the formation spirit has been roused and is trying to escape. Fatty Luo instantly cried out. For a formation set up by an itinerant immortal like this, apart from the complicated formation patterns, it would most likely have an array spirit. In order to maintain the safety and stability of the array spirit would shift the position of the core array pattern every once in a while. But now, the array spirit had been awakened in advance. You want to destroy me? Not so easy. In this space, as long as I don't want to die, I can be indestructible. The formation spirit laughed proudly. This large array formation was not to be underestimated. It could carry illusions and multiple layers of parallel space. It belonged to the advanced array formation of the space flow. Of course, this array spirit was not an ordinary being. As soon as he finished speaking, the runes that were originally engraved in the room turned into a wandering dragon-like spirit that instantly floated up and fiercely rushed out of the door. It was as fast as a bolt of lightning, and grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Fatty Luo had no time to catch up. Wang Ling didn't look sideways, he merely frowned and directly stamped his foot down. Before the array spirit could break through the door, its body was accurately stepped on by Wang Ling. Aya. Wang Ling had only stepped on the last bit of the array pattern, which was like a small tail, but the array spirit was aghast to find that it actually couldn't move even half a step. Wang Ling's speed had already surpassed the array spirit's imagination, and the force of his stomp was like a nail that firmly pinned it to the ground. Brother Ling, to be able to operate such a large array, this array spirit is no ordinary creature. It would be great if we could capture it alive. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal suddenly said. The value of an itinerant immortal array spirit was simply immeasurable. Generally speaking, array flags and an array creator were needed to operate an array, and when the creator wasn't around, the array spirit could replace the creator. But subduing a powerful array spirit was as difficult as ascending to heaven. This was a product of nomological laws, and the principle was a little similar to that of a sword spirit. Since ancient times, there had been only a handful of arrays that could give birth to an array spirit on their own initiative. But it seemed that grenade-throwing senior immortal had spoken a little too late. When Wang Ling had made his move, he hadn't intended to keep this array spirit at all. Wang Ling hated everything that disturbed his peaceful life. Whether it was the mastermind behind the scenes or the array spirit in front of him, it was all the same. So since he wanted to live a peaceful life, he didn't need to care about what would happen next. Whether this array spirit was strong or weak had nothing to do with Wang Ling. His original goal was to get everyone out of the space safely. Wang Ling raised his hand, and the spirit's sword in his hand instantly lit up. This brown sword light lingered around Jinka's body. It wasn't bright, on the contrary, it could be said to be very gentle. But the oppressive feeling in that gentleness was very real. Fatty Luo only felt that Jinka was really at ease. Nothing could be more gentle than this. The array spirit had a fearful expression on its face as it instinctively sensed the danger of this peachwood spirit sword. It hurriedly opened its mouth and begged bitterly, "Exalted immortal, please let me go. I had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai." Wang Ling didn't even look at the array spirit as he directly swung his sword down. The array spirit didn't even have time to cry out as the sword light directly pierced its body. In the next moment, its ghostly body, along with the core array pattern hidden inside, cracked and shattered. Brother Ling, seeing this scene, grenade-throwing senior immortal and Fatty Luo couldn't help sucking in cold breaths. An array spirit at itinerant immortal level had been cut down just like that. Furthermore, it had died after just one slash. This was probably what a big shot was like. Grenade-throwing senior immortal's heart ached. If he could subdue such a powerful array spirit, it would definitely be a powerful little brother. But very quickly, grenade-throwing senior immortal felt relieved, because what Wang Ling had done wasn't wrong. He had always been this kind of person from the beginning. The array spirit was destroyed, the core array pattern was destroyed, and the game space also started to crack inch by inch. Bits of sunlight seeped in through the dark space and shone on Wang Ling's face. Grenade-throwing senior immortal and Fatty Luo stood on the side and looked at him. They didn't know if it was because the crisis had been resolved, but they felt that Wang Ling's serious face seemed a lot more at ease. Chapter 273. When Lai Mengmeng woke up, he found himself lying on Wang Ling's bed, while Wang Ling was sitting at the desk and seriously flipping through some study materials. What was going on? He remembered that he had been playing a game with Wang Ling just now. How had he fallen asleep? Lai Mengmeng got up and rubbed the space between his eyebrows, feeling a little headache coming on. Wang Ling was silent with his back to Lai Mengmeng. When he had left the game space, he had completely erased Lai Mengmeng's memory of it. Now, Lai Mengmeng's memory stopped at just before he had started playing the game. A scheme played by an itinerant immortal almighty had been severed by his sword, which would definitely involve a lot of things later on. As an ordinary person, Wang Ling didn't want to drag Lai Mengmeng into this. At that moment, there was a knock on the door. After a few seconds, Mother Wang pushed it open and came in with some fruit. She saw that Lai Mengmeng was awake. "Little Song, you're awake? I heard from Wang Ling just now that you suddenly fell asleep while playing the game with him." "I fell asleep?" Lai Mengmeng pointed at himself in disbelief. "That's right. Eat some fruit first. I made some chicken soup. You must drink some when you go downstairs later." Mother Wang sighed and frowned as she looked at Lai Mengmeng very seriously. Although it's not easy to do anything these days, and it has to burn the midnight oil with an author, young people should still pay more attention to their health. Nowadays, aren't there many young people who get sick from staying up late? Lai Mengmeng, Mother Wang, look, sometimes you young people like to get pimples when you stay up late. If you have a pimple, you'll have to squeeze it. After squeezing the pimple, if you're not careful, it will become infected. If you encounter an infectious disease, you might die. Some time ago, there was a young man who seemed to have died like this. Lai Mengmeng was so frightened that he touched his face. Sis, where did you see this? Mother Wang, Moments, the title even says that 99% of Huaxia people have read it. How can this be fake? Lai Mengmeng, Mother Wang, in short, you must pay attention to your rest in the future. If you're tired, don't force yourself. Lai Mengmeng said, Sis is right. I'll definitely pay attention. Mother Wang, from today onwards, I'm going to make scientific plans and reasonable arrangements for you and that man of mine. You're going to be well nourished, and you're going to develop morally, intellectually, physically, and aesthetically. Lai Mengmeng didn't dare refute her at all. He suddenly thought of that previous game. Sister, let me ask you something. Did you see the USB flash drive that Wang Ling collected earlier? Mother Wang pointed at the trash can at Wang Ling's feet. A USB drive? I threw it away. Ling Ling said you suddenly fainted, and when you fell to the ground, you directly hit the USB drive and broke it. Oh, my chicken soup. Nurse Wang said earnestly, looked at the watch in her hand, remembered that her chicken soup was still boiling downstairs, and hurriedly went downstairs. Lai Mengmeng glanced at the completely shattered USB drive in the trash can. At once, his legs turned to jelly, and he knelt beside the bucket, tears streaming down his face. He felt his heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys aching. What had he done? Looking at Lai Mengmeng out of the corner of his eye, Wang Ling actually felt a little apologetic in his heart. Because this USB drive was deliberately stepped on by him, at the same time, there had just been an explosion at the Taoist temple on Nine Boundary Mountain between Jinghua and Songhai City. Billowing black smoke poured out of the Taoist temple's windows and doors. The Eastern Branch chief walked out of the Taoist temple with Tan Xian's help, F***K. What the hell happened just now? The Eastern Branch chief coughed violently, and black smoke spewed out of his mouth and nose. Based on the scene before the explosion, he had seen the pile of mosaics on the screen suddenly emit a brownish-yellow spirit light. Not long after that, there had been a loud boom in the room, and the entire screen had suddenly exploded. Only Tan Xian's heart was as clear as a mirror. Although he couldn't clearly see what was behind that pile of mosaics, he had seen that familiar spirit light before. With one glance, Tan Xian could tell that it was Lord Jinka who had come. Thus, the moment he saw the spirit light, Tan Xian already had a feeling in his heart, and very cleverly took a few steps back. Sure enough, not long after he stepped back, the screen in front of the chief suddenly exploded. After using a cleansing talisman on himself to wash the dirt off his body and face, the miserable Eastern Branch chief changed into a new set of clothes. Thinking of the explosion just now, the Eastern Branch chief still had some lingering fear in his heart. He could see that it wasn't a problem with the equipment, but something had gone wrong inside the space, which had affected the space and caused it to explode. Fortunately, he had the foundation of his realm and the protection of the Taoist robe. Apart from being a little dirty, there wasn't much of a problem. Of course, if it had been the instantaneous power of the explosion just now, everyone below the nascent soul stage would have died here. But what on earth had happened just now? To be able to destroy the space so quickly under the great magic array that Master had personally set up, the identity of the person who had destroyed the space was definitely not simple. Do you understand the situation? The Eastern Branch chief was puzzled, but even more shocked. Tan Xian nodded and replied, in addition to our Eastern Branch, the Southern, Western and Northern Branches' situations are similar. The screens in front of the three chiefs all exploded at the same time. All exploded? The Eastern Branch chief turned pale with shock. Yes, all exploded, Tan Xian replied. What on earth was this thing that could actually destroy all parallel spaces in an instant? The Eastern Branch chief felt a layer of goosebumps appear on his back. Did Master send any letters? Yes. Tan Xian handed over a piece of paper. This is a test report that Master just sent over using the 10,000-mile talisman. It records some of the fluctuations in the space before the explosion. The Eastern Branch Chief took the report and carefully examined some of the data recorded on the test report. According to Master's speculation, the space should have been destroyed by some Dharma treasure, most likely a spirit sword-type Dharma treasure, which cut off the core array pattern and directly destroyed the array spirit, Tan Qian said. Sure enough, the Eastern Branch Chief sighed. The data marked on the report are all Dharma treasures' combat power indexes estimated using modern precision instruments. The common combat power index of the lowest Foundation Establishment stage spirit sword is in the range of 1,000 to 5,000. If it's a Golden Core stage spirit sword, the combat power index will exceed 10,000, or even tens of thousands. Nascent Soul and Soul Formation stage spirit swords will reach hundreds of thousands. And Master said to destroy this layer of space. This spirit sword is stronger than a Soul Formation stage spirit sword. It has to be at least a first-grade holy artifact. A first-grade holy artifact's combat power index is usually in the millions. Speaking up to this point, Tan Qian took a deep breath and pointed to the report. And the spirit sword that just destroyed this layer of space. The instrument calculated the combat power index at the bottom of the report. The Eastern Branch Chief looked in the direction Tan Qian was pointing. Chapter 274. Staring at the 9 question marks, the Eastern Branch Chief sank into deep thought for a long time. The Eastern Branch Chief, what's this? This is the monitoring data on the spirit sword, but according to Master, its combat strength has already exceeded the range of the instrument, said Tan Qian. Is that so? The Eastern Branch Chief frowned deeply. Just now, Master ordered us to thoroughly investigate leads on the spirit sword's owner. Investigate leads? He, doesn't that give us a big advantage? The Eastern Branch Chief laughed cruelly. At the very least, we know that the owner of this spirit sword has something to do with the people living in that villa. Sure enough, I was right to send you, little Tan, to sound them out back then. My venerable self is so smart, ha 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 ha. Tan Qian sweated. Not necessarily, Chief. According to my investigation, the people living in that villa are a very ordinary family. I don't care. Apart from the USB drive sent to that fatty Luo's hardware store, this villa is the only game space we've been monitoring this time. Even if it has nothing to do with this family, it might be related to their relatives. This is the only lead we have right now. The Eastern Branch Chief directly waved his hand. This time, I'll investigate it myself. I'd rather kill everything by mistake than let one go. Tan Qian. Chief, are you really not going to think about it? As long as my venerable self gets the lead first and reports it to Master, I'll be promoted to an Elder of Immortal Mansion soon. The Eastern Branch Chief looked at Tan Qian and patted him on the shoulder. Once I'm promoted to an Elder, little Tan, you'll be the next Eastern Branch Chief. Tan Qian sighed deeply in his heart. He had to report this matter to Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal first. It was June 26th on Sunday in the 9th week of the semester. In the morning, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal came to the door with freshly grown broccoli. The old man was bathing in the morning light as he watered the plants at the door with a smile on his face. Yesterday, he had specially gone to Fang Xing's family's noodle shop to compare notes on his cooking skills. The old man had always pursued a high level of culinary skill, and was naturally in a particularly good mood to meet someone who could compare notes with him. Just thinking about it made him happy. Good morning, old Senior Wang. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal greeted him respectfully. Yo. It's Xiaolei. Have you had breakfast? The old man raised the showerhead in his hand and responded enthusiastically. I've already eaten, old Senior Wang. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal chuckled. Senior, you're smiling. What are you so happy about? Yesterday I went to Ling Ling's classmate's house. His family runs a noodle shop. Moreover, that classmate's father has some cooking skills, so I sparred with him for a bit. The old man stroked his beard and recalled seriously, I heard that his father became a special class chef at the age of 13. He usually covered his special class medal with a white cloth. When I went there yesterday, there was an acolyte standing next to his father. He went up and tore off the white cloth. I just saw the special chef's name shining brightly. Tisk, it's really amazing. Grenade throwing senior immortal, by the way, why did Xiaolei come here today? The old man asked. Grenade throwing senior immortal bowed. I'm looking for Brother Ling. Is he here? It's the weekend, of course he's at home, the old man replied. But it seems that Ling Ling has locked himself in his room today and hasn't come out much. Brother Ling is in seclusion? Grenade throwing senior immortal sked. Seclusion was usually either to consolidate a realm or to break through to another realm. To him, it was actually quite rare for Brother Ling to be in seclusion. Could it be that Brother Ling was going to break through again? But Grenade throwing senior immortal very quickly rejected this idea. He looked at Grandfather Wang and asked, Senior, do you know what happened to Brother Ling? He seems to be having a heart-to-heart talk with Jinka, Grandfather Wang replied. Grandfather Wang replied, there's always a day every month when Ling Ling locks himself up in his room like this to have a heart-to-heart talk with Jinka. Hearing this, Grenade throwing senior immortal's eyes suddenly widened, and he asked in horror, Brother Ling, can have a heart-to-heart talk? No wonder Grenade throwing senior immortal was so shocked. After all, Ling Jinren speaking was a rare and miraculous thing. In Grenade throwing senior immortal's eyes, the probability of this happening was like a sow climbing a tree. But the way Ling Ling has a heart-to-heart talk is very strange. He just holds Jinka and doesn't say anything. Speaking up to this point, the old man also had his own concerns. Ling Ling's father and mother have always been worried that Ling Ling might have a psychological problem. Little Lei, you have a lot of ideas. Do you have a way to find out what Ling Ling and little Jingzi are talking about? Grenade throwing senior immortal's face was instantly troubled. He hadn't had time to learn an advanced spell like the mind-reading ability yet. But very quickly, Grenade throwing senior immortal thought of a way. Old Senior Wang, wait, let me call my friend. Grenade throwing senior immortal took out his cell phone, and the signal directly crossed mountains and rivers to Little Black's border laboratory. Hello? Little Black? Can you lend me the mind-reading software you developed last time? Yes. I need it urgently. Can you send it directly to my cell phone? On the other end of the line, Little Black was clearly a little hesitant. But Brother Lei, this software is still in its trial phase. You mean, you can't use it? Grenade throwing senior immortal deliberately laughed. How is that possible? I meticulously developed this software, and it's connected to the mind-reading device in my lab remotely. As long as the software is there, it can read someone's mind and translate it. Little Black grit his teeth. Since Brother Lei wants to try it, I'll send it to you now. Roughly 2 minutes later, Grenade throwing senior immortal saw the phone screen light up. An unknown file had been remotely located by Little Black and sent to Grenade throwing senior immortal's cell phone. Grenade throwing senior immortal bared his white teeth and looked at Old Man Wang excitedly. Senior, I've done it. Let's go to Brother Ling's room and take a look. The old man was a little doubtful. Will it work? Grenade throwing senior immortal opened the software and aimed the phone at the old man. After the software did some monitoring, a string of words appeared on the interface. Ling Ling won't be angry, right? The old man took a look and was stupefied. It actually works. Of course. Grenade throwing senior immortal was full of confidence. The two of them went all the way up to the second floor to Wang Ling's room. It was completely silent inside. Grenade throwing senior immortal aimed the phone at the door. Because the door had detected 2 waves of energy fluctuations, the software had used the English code names A and B to separate the people inside. A stood for Wang Ling, while B stood for Jinka. The old man leaned over curiously. What does it say? Roughly a minute later, the analysis came out. There were 3 conversations in total. A. Wang Ling, B. Jinka, A. Wang Ling, B. Jinka, A. Wang Ling, B, Jinka, Old Man Wang, what are they talking about? Chapter 275. There were actually many ways to increase the rapport between a spirit sword and its sword spirit. In the past, when spirit beasts and demon beasts were rampant, many cultivators would choose to use their spirit swords to kill as many spirit beasts and demon beasts as possible in order to increase their rapport and proficiency. This was the most effective and fastest method among all the methods. But now, the demon beasts had been blocked by the gate between worlds, and spirit beasts had become protected animals in various countries. So modern cultivators had figured out a unique way to increase their rapport with a spirit sword. For example, Dharmaraja's most common method was to use the godly thunder inheritance to give his spirit sword a light massage therapy. Grenade-throwing senior immortal, for example, had been obsessed with studying the broccoli that grandfather Wang had given him, and had been soaking his spirit sword in the broccoli field all day. In contrast, Wang Ling's method was very simple. His method was to hold Jinka in the palm of his hand. Wang Ling called this method the holding you in the palm of my heart, tacit understanding method. The name sounded old-fashioned and low-class, with a hint of the rural, non-mainstream Chinibu flavor. But Wang Ling felt that no matter how old-fashioned it couldn't be more old-fashioned than the Golden Arches. Every month, Wang Ling would set aside one day to increase his rapport with Jinka, but it usually didn't take too long. After waiting downstairs for about an hour, Grenade-throwing saw Wang Ling come downstairs, and the first thing he did was mercilessly roll his eyes. This was a warning for Grenade-throwing's rude attempt to use the software to read his mind. This eye roll made Grenade-throwing's heart thump, and he sighed dejectedly in his heart. It looked like he could only offer up that treasured limited edition Shuangwanglian-flavored crispy noodle snack pack to make amends. Getting back to the point, the young man in white looked at Wang Ling solemnly and said, "Brother Ling, I'm here to retrieve the Demon King's arm that you mentioned last time." Wang Ling nodded. When Grenade-throwing senior immortal had arrived at the entrance of the Wang family's small villa to chat with the old man, Wang Ling had already known the latter's purpose for this trip. The two of them arrived in the backyard one after the other. Loopy Toad was lying on the ground basking in the sun. When it saw little Master Ling, it very consciously moved away from its spot and wagged its tail as it chose to lie down at Wang Ling's feet again. Wang Ling opened his heavenly eye in the air and activated the power of world vision. At that moment, Grenade-throwing senior immortal once again saw Wang Ling's pupils open like flower petals at close range. Because of the power of the heavenly eye, they were dyed a dark gold color. A moment later, as far as Wang Ling's eyes could see, spirit energy swirled up in a torrent, opening up a space like a vortex. Rumble, the white-clothed youth watched as a huge black shadow fell from the sky right in front of his feet. After that, even the ground caved in, unable to bear the enormous weight of the arm. Grenade-throwing senior immortal, this was the arm of a demon king, and furthermore, it was from the giant devil clan. Although he could already imagine how enormous it was, when he saw it with his own eyes, Grenade-throwing senior immortal was still deeply frightened. This demon king's arms were so dense. If Immortal Toya hadn't personally told him about it, Grenade-throwing senior immortal would never have thought that Wang Ling had used a door to snap them in half. Opening his heavenly eye, Grenade-throwing senior immortal hurriedly withdrew the enormous demon king's arm into his field of vision. Although the arm had been snapped off a long time ago, its demon chi was still very strong. It hadn't been long since it had been released, but the flowers and plants nearby were already showing signs of withering. Fortunately, the old man didn't take care of the flowers and plants in the back garden very often, otherwise Grenade-throwing senior immortal would have felt that he had suffered a huge loss by offending Old Man Wang. Even dozens of tons of broccoli wouldn't be able to save it. This demon king's arm has a lot of value in development and utilization. When I get back, I'll hold a meeting to study it properly. After accepting the demon king's arm, the white-clothed youth's heart was already more or less at ease. Grenade-throwing senior immortal heaved a sigh of relief, but the expression on his face didn't relax in the slightest. Recalling what had happened in the game space yesterday, he turned to Wang Ling and asked, "Brother Ling, what do you think about what happened in that space yesterday?" In fact, even if grenade-throwing senior immortal didn't say anything, Wang Ling's heart was as clear as a mirror. He knew that this matter had something to do with Immortal Mansion. Resolving this matter wasn't as easy as he had imagined, but it wasn't complicated either. He just needed to cut the weeds and pull out the roots. At this thought, Wang Ling narrowed his eyes. He recalled that a lot of trouble had recently arisen because of Immortal Mansion. Wang Ling had always had zero tolerance for this sort of thing that ruined his peaceful life again and again. As a good friend of many years, grenade throwing was well aware of Wang Ling's attitude. He took a deep breath and looked at Wang Ling. Actually, Tan Xian gave me a clue earlier. Immortal Mansion's Eastern Branch Chief is about to make a move. No matter what Brother Ling thinks, I will definitely risk my life to accompany you to the end. Wang Ling gazed into the white-clothed youth's eyes, and his pupils couldn't help revealing a rare coldness. That evening, there was a faint tremor on East Huang Road in front of the Wang family's small villa. The ground shook, startling many birds into flight. A figure descended in front of the villa with an intense pressure. When the figure landed, the ground cracked open, and endless spirit light swirled around him to form an invisible shield of Gang Qi. It shook the ground so hard that it shattered, and even the air seemed to distort. It's here. The middle-aged man, surrounded by spirit light and supported by Gang Qi, smiled coldly. He stared at the Wang family's small villa with an unprecedented murderous intent. He had been the Eastern Branch chief for a whole 100 years. Now, as long as he could gather intelligence on this family, his promotion to a senior elder of Immortal Mansion was just around the corner. The corners of the middle-aged man's mouth couldn't help curling up. He had been waiting for this day for far too long. This was his best chance to be promoted to a senior level in 100 years, and also his closest chance. He couldn't miss this opportunity. The middle-aged man's gaze was fixed on the villa's entrance, and his murderous intent permeated the Wang family's villa without any disguise. About 2 minutes later, the door to the Wang family's villa opened. But the door didn't fully open, and only opened a crack before it stopped. Chapter 276. This sword light was definitely the same brown spirit light that had appeared on the screen before the space had exploded. The Eastern Branch chief suddenly realized. Sure enough, it was as Master had analyzed, that spirit sword was very unusual. It was an indescribable feeling that was hard to describe in words. Before the sword light even got close, a great oppressive force enveloped him from afar. After familiarizing himself with this light, the Eastern Branch chief finally saw the body of the spirit sword in it. This was actually a peachwood sword. It was just a peachwood sword, so why did it have such abnormal data as 9 question marks? Judging from the sword chi, this sword did indeed seem very strong, but the middle-aged man felt that there was probably something wrong with the instrument used to detect the combat strength of a magic weapon. In any case, since Master has found you, I can only take you back first. The Eastern Branch chief frowned as he stared at the dazzling sword gleam. He raised his hand and took out a few small flags. The flagpoles of these flags were as black as ink and were covered with fine veined patterns. They spread out in the wind and swiftly enlarged to surround him. In the blink of an eye, a wave of spatial energy formed, turning into a barrier that resisted the pressure. Wang Ling and grenade-throwing senior immortal were in the bedroom on the 2nd floor. Watching this scene from a distance, Wang Ling could tell at a glance that these flags were from ancient times at the very least, and were from the same era as the black dagger that the old devil had left behind. This Immortal Mansion actually has such a deep foundation. Grenade-throwing senior immortal couldn't help clicking his tongue and sighing. Because according to Tan Xian's report, the person who had come was just an Eastern Branch chief, who at best played the role of an outer sect elder. And such an outer sect elder actually had an ancient artifact in his hand. Just how rich was this group of inner sect disciples? With the protection of the magic flags, the middle-aged man felt a lot less pressure. He couldn't control these ancient magic flags 100%, and the power they could exert was very limited. But in his opinion, this barrier made up of ancient magic flags, which were comparable to first-class holy weapons, was enough to block the invasion of this sword chi. Furthermore, the protection of the magic flags wasn't his only goal. His ultimate goal was to capture this spirit sword. In ancient times, the Dharma flags hovering around him were powerful artifacts that could suppress sword spirits by capturing sword chi. My magic flag has captured countless spiritual swords in ancient times. So what if you're strong? The Eastern Branch chief stared at the surging brown spirit light in front of him and sneered. With a flip of his palm, specks of divine waves appeared, and the Dharma flags around him instantly scattered in all directions. With the power of the Dharma flags, the flagpoles lined up in the void and turned into a huge cage. It's the spirit-suppressing flag? Grenade-throwing senior immortal exclaimed as he recognized the magic flags. Many famous spirit swords on the list of swords once fell victim to this magic weapon. I heard that the person who created these spirit-subduing flags has an unusual relationship with old Demon Han. Wang Ling opened his heavenly eye to the extreme and looked at the spirit-subduing flags. From what grenade-throwing senior immortal could remember, this was probably the first time he had seen Wang Ling's heavenly eye up close. The golden petals in those pupils seemed to be gathering boundless spirit power, which gave off an unreal sense of fear. He didn't dare look directly at it, and could only observe it out of the corner of his eye. Wang Ling frowned deeply as he stared at the spirit-subduing flags in the void. All the magic weapons from ancient times that had appeared in the world now had one thing in common: they had all lost their weapon spirits. It was precisely because they were masterless objects without weapon spirits that some cultivators nowadays used them. An ancient magic weapon with a weapon spirit would never be able to be operated by a soul formation cultivator. But through his heavenly eye, Wang Ling could see many strange nomological laws hovering around the spirit-subduing flags. Thus, this magic weapon was very strange to Wang Ling. He felt that someone was remotely controlling the artifact, and that the Eastern Branch chief might not be the true owner of the artifact. This was something that Wang Ling felt was a little strange. At that moment, the cage formed by the spirit-subduing flags had already enveloped Jinka. The middle-aged man looked ahead with a calm expression on his face as he quietly waited for the peach-wood sword spirit to appear. A moment later, he saw the peach-wood sword spirit light dissipate under the cage, and it gradually took on its original form. It was a child in a brown and white robe who looked to be only 10 years old, and was looking at him coldly with his fair little face. Looking up at the huge spirit-subduing flag cage, Jinka sighed. No, chat. He had thought that this was a magic weapon that could compete with him, which was why he had taken on its original form to personally experience it. But the reality was very disappointing. About 10 seconds later, this cage was like the pagoda-bearing Heavenly King's golden pagoda, which had captured demons. A purple light shone from below on Jinka's body. This was a special spirit light that could suppress most spirit sword spirits for a very short period of time. Illuminated by the purple spirit light, Jinka yawned and looked on indifferently. He didn't resist, and there wasn't the slightest ripple on his face. Success. Seeing that Jinka didn't move, the middle-aged man was overjoyed. The longer the purple light shone, the weaker the sword spirit would be. So he stood in the distance and watched as Jinka stood under the purple spirit light as if it were a microwave oven. 5 minutes later, that's enough time. The middle-aged man was overjoyed as he slowly walked in Jinka's direction, feeling as refreshed as when he had collected vegetables when he had played Happy Farm. He was just one step away from being promoted to a high level of immortal mansion. He approached Jinka, formed a magic seal with his hands, and finally raised them high. Withdraw. With a loud shout, he followed the purple light and saw the sword spirit in front of him being drawn back into the cage bit by bit. The huge cage in the air gradually shrank until it was the size of a palm and fell into the Eastern Branch chief's hands. Just like that, he succeeded. Holding the cage, the middle-aged man was overjoyed. Everything had gone too smoothly. The whole process was very quiet. Wang Ling and grenade-throwing senior immortal were in the study on the second floor, watching everything with indifferent expressions on their faces. Deliberately getting Jinka arrested had been part of Wang Ling's plan. Lord Jinka has truly been wronged. Grenade-throwing senior immortal put his hands on his hips as he watched the middle-aged man laugh like a 200-kilogram child as he walked away. Now, they just had to wait for this Eastern Branch chief to take Jinka to Immortal Mansion's headquarters. As soon as Wang Ling received Jinka's signal, Grenade-throwing senior immortal and Wang Ling would directly attack. Now, we just have to wait for Lord Jinka's signal. When the time comes, we'll directly fight the nouveau riche. Grenade-throwing senior immortal said. Oh, that's right, Brother Ling. Just now, the brothers and sisters in the group and Fatty Luo all said that they want to participate in this operation. Wang Ling, ? Grenade-throwing senior immortal, it's common sense to call your brothers and sisters when you're fighting a nouveau riche. Wang Ling. Chapter 277. Normal spirit swords would start training after they were a certain distance away from their masters, but Jinka was different. Wang Ling could sense his aura from start to finish. This was the benefit of cultivating once a month to increase the rapport between spirit swords. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, Wang Ling carefully sensed Jinka's aura. It was as if he had a radar in his head, and he knew exactly where Jinka was. Just over an hour later, Grenade-throwing senior immortal saw Wang Ling open his eyes. How is it, Brother Ling? Any news? Using memory sketch, Wang Ling drew a map and marked a red dot on it. This is. Grenade-throwing senior immortal frowned. He hadn't expected Immortal Mansion's final stronghold to actually be in Winter City. Winter City's geographical location was relatively special. It was located in the extreme north of Huaxiao Nation, and happened to be the exact opposite of Little Black's border laboratory. They were on opposite ends of the map. The reason why Winter City was special was that ordinary people couldn't withstand the bitter cold there, and basically no ordinary people lived there. All kinds of magic treasure traders in the cultivation circle hated this place, because magic treasures would often freeze as soon as they were taken out of their pockets. There was no room for low-quality magic treasures in Winter City at all. Grenade-throwing senior immortal had speculated a lot about the possible locations of Immortal Mansion's headquarters, but he hadn't considered Winter City. Although Winter City's environment was very harsh, it was very suitable for cultivation, and a lot of Huaxiao's military cultivation troops were stationed there. Logically speaking, no dark force would dare make a move here. But Grenade-throwing senior immortal had miscalculated. It's actually Winter City. The young man in white pursed his lips. He should have thought of it earlier. Although they knew the final location of Immortal Mansion's headquarters, getting there was a new problem. Winter City didn't have an airport, because there had been many accidents in which engines had been directly frozen, so the general way to get to Winter City was by bullet train. Can't we teleport? Loopy Toad, who had been lying on the ground, suddenly asked. Grenade-throwing senior immortal was astonished. When did Brother Toad learn to talk? Loopy Toad. I've always been able to talk. Then I'm really sorry, I thought Brother Ling was a boring person. Grenade-throwing senior immortal laughed. There are a lot of troops stationed in Winter City, so outsiders are closely monitored. Since Immortal Mansion's headquarters is there, it's likely that their top executives have hidden identities. We'll use our third-generation ID cards to take a bullet train. Going through the proper procedures is actually the safest way. If we let Brother Ling teleport us over, it'll be very awkward if the police come to check our IDs. Saying this, Grenade-throwing senior immortal turned to look at Wang Ling. So, Brother Ling, have you decided? Wang Ling sighed and raised his head to look in the direction of Winter City. Listen to you. Without saying anything else, he looked at Grenade-throwing senior immortal and spoke telepathically. Come to think of it, Wang Ling suddenly remembered that he had never taken a bullet train in his life. June 26th was Monday in the 10th week of the semester. He left a clone behind to go to school on his behalf. Just as dawn broke, Wang Ling arrived at Songhai City train station. At this time, the breakfast stalls had just been set up and the pancake stalls were just warming up. Wang Ling stepped into the VIP waiting room reserved for cultivators. At this time, the number of people was still relatively sparse. If they waited for another hour, the number of people in the ordinary waiting hall outside would skyrocket. Grenade-throwing senior immortal had booked the train tickets to Winter City, and the departure time was 6:40. Wang Ling wasn't in the habit of being late, and preferred to arrive early. He looked down at the estimated time of arrival marked on the train ticket. It would take 3 hours to get to Winter City by bullet train, and after 3 hours, this dark force that had been harassing him would completely disappear from Middle-earth. Looking at the train ticket, Wang Ling sighed deeply. He just wanted to live an ordinary life. Why did they have to force him to act? While he was pondering this, Wang Ling's wristwatch phone rang. It was a call from Grenade-throwing senior immortal. "Brother Ling, are you already here? I just picked up Brother Luo, and I'm on my way to the station now. I'll be there in about 10 minutes. Silian Jinren from the group is also coming with us." Grenade-throwing senior immortal said, "Brother Tu isn't coming with us, he probably ran into some trouble. Brother Ling, see if you can help him later." Wang Ling had a puzzled expression on his face. "It's like this, he has a fighting lion. It just so happens to be in heat recently." There was astonishment in Wang Ling's eyes. "So, this fighting lion had," Grenade-throwing senior immortal, "Brother Ling, don't get the wrong idea. It just so happened that Brother To disturbed this fighting lion when it was in heat yesterday, so it's biting his head now and won't come down no matter what." Wang Ling, about 5 minutes after Grenade-throwing senior immortal hung up, Wang Ling saw a young man with his upper body covered in blood calmly walk into the VIP waiting hall with a fighting lion on his back. Just as Grenade-throwing senior immortal had said, this fighting lion had been biting Immortal Toya's head and wouldn't let go. Wang Ling. It wasn't just Wang Ling who saw this scene. Anyone who saw it would be extremely horrifying and shocking. The security personnel who followed Immortal Toya looked like they wanted to stop this kind of violation of the rules when pets were brought into the waiting hall, but they were too afraid to step forward. In the end, they could only raise a handheld loudspeaker from a distance and issue a warning. "Sir, in front. Pets are not allowed in this waiting hall." Alarmed by the loudspeaker's shrill voice, the fighting lion glanced at the security personnel out of the corner of its eye. Their faces were instantly covered in fine beads of sweat, and they didn't dare speak at all. Each of them wanted to cry but had no tears. "Mom, this fighting lion was a little scary." "Hi, Senior Ling." The young man sensed Wang Ling's aura. He raised his hand and greeted Wang Ling from a distance. Wang Ling, knowing that Wang Ling was in front of him, it was as if Immortal Toya had found a life-saving straw. "Senior Ling, do you have a way to help me get down?" Wang Ling sighed and deliberately circled around to the back of the fighting lion as he slowly approached Immortal Toya. When he was behind the fighting lion, Wang Ling stretched out a finger and wrapped his aura around it as he poked the fighting lion's broad back. The originally agitated fighting lion was instantly so scared that its hair stood on end, and it jumped down from Immortal Toya's back. The fighting lion was so frightened by Wang Ling that it curled up and trembled on the ground. "Thank you, Senior Ling." Finally able to breathe fresh air again, the young man felt as if he had been pardoned. He couldn't care less about the mess on his body. He squatted down and touched the lower half of the fighting lion's body. Finally, he sighed deeply. Now, not only is the heat over, I'm afraid there won't be a heat anymore. Chapter 278. After that, Immortal Toya made a call, and it wasn't long before Wang Ling heard the continuous roar of a helicopter in the sky outside the waiting hall. It was actually a helicopter. Furthermore, Wang Ling couldn't be more familiar with the logo on the helicopter. It was a helicopter from the 7 Stars Special Forces. Back then, Grenade-throwing senior immortal had duped him into becoming an advisor. After the survival contest, General E hired me as an advisor to the 7 Stars Special Forces. I never thought it would actually come in handy today. Immortal Toya raised his eyebrows as he stared at the sky, wondering if he could use this helicopter to send the fighting lion over. But I'm only borrowing this helicopter, so the fuel consumption is still on me. Based on the latest model of Spirit Core propulsion systems, using Spirit Cores as fuel costs 1 million HNY per minute. Hearing this, the corners of Wang Ling's mouth twitched fiercely. Sure enough, you could really do whatever you wanted with money. The VIP waiting hall had its own dressing room. Immortal Toya used a cleansing talisman to wash the blood off his body. Senior Ling, grenade-throwing senior immortal might be here soon. Tell them to wait for me. Then, he strode toward the dressing room. Wang Ling looked at the clock hanging on the wall of the waiting hall. It was already past the 10 minutes that grenade-throwing senior immortal had mentioned earlier. As far as Wang Ling knew, grenade-throwing senior immortal wasn't in the habit of being late. Had something happened on the way? Wang Ling's mind was filled with wild and fanciful thoughts. He really couldn't be blamed for letting his imagination run wild, because his eyelids had started to twitch again. For some reason, he had a very bad feeling about this. About 2 minutes later, a group of people dressed in ancient clothes appeared at the entrance of the VIP waiting hall. Led by the young man in white in the middle, they slowly walked over. Wang Ling felt that it would be very appropriate to use chaotic superstars as background music at a time like this. Sitting in the waiting hall, Wang Ling immediately saw Dharmaraja, Fatty Luo, and the others. On the side was a girl whose figure was almost as good as the master of shadow streams. She was wearing a light pink dress and had an iconic lotus hairpin on her head. Wang Ling knew that this was most likely Ciliangenren. He didn't think that Ciliangenren had changed much since the gate between worlds had descended 6 years ago. The only difference was that her aura was more stable. Everyone in the chat group was using their own methods to cultivate diligently, and they were improving every day. But while Wang Ling recognized Ciliangenren didn't recognize him. In theory, this wasn't the first time they had met. Ciliangenren had met 10-year-old Wang Ling 6 years ago, and had given him a set of facial cleanser as soon as they met. Wang Ling still remembered it vividly. After entering the waiting hall, Ciliangenren immediately made a fuss and asked around, looking very excited. Senior Ling? Who was Senior Ling? Which one is Senior Ling? Not only had his appearance not changed, even his personality was as bold and unrestrained as it was 6 years ago. Wang Ling sighed in his heart and silently stood up from his seat. The latter immediately stopped screaming. Like most people's first impression of Wang Ling, Ciliangenren's first impression of him was that he was young and full of vitality, as well as the boundless vitality of a young man. How did he do this? This is Brother Ling. Grenade-throwing senior immortal stepped forward and hugged Wang Ling's shoulder as he introduced him. I never thought I'd see Senior Ling under these circumstances today. Nice to meet you. Ciliangenren shook Wang Ling's hand a little excitedly, looking like she was about to cry. Well, I was a little excited. I'm sorry. Senior Ling. The moment they shook hands, Wang Ling could clearly sense the injury in Ciliangenren's body. He had heard grenade-throwing senior immortal mention before that it was an injury she had sustained 300 years ago. Although it could heal, it was very slow. In her heyday, Ciliangenren had reached the level of a perfected being, but after that injury, her realm had fallen several levels. It was only after nearly 100 years that her injury had stabilized and she had begun to gradually recover. Even so, Ciliangenren's current level was about the same as Dharmaraja without the godly thunder inheritance. Just the few of us? Wang Ling raised his eyebrows and asked grenade-throwing senior immortal telepathically. Including Brother 2, who's still in the changing room, there are 7 of us participating in the operation this time, grenade-throwing senior immortal said with a smile. 7? Including himself, there were only 6 people present now. Wang Ling hadn't expected there to be a 7th brother. He started to have a bad feeling. Grenade-throwing senior immortal, I forgot to tell Brother Ling, I only recently passed the vetting process and plan to add this brother to the chat group. I've known him for a few years, and he went to the restroom when he entered the station just now. I think he'll be back soon. Brother Ling will definitely be very surprised to see him. As soon as grenade-throwing senior immortal said this, then, Wang Ling instantly saw someone he absolutely didn't want to see right now. From a long distance away, Wang Ling could already see a pair of long legs in blue and white striped track pants. A sunny, fair-skinned teenager was walking toward him with a smile on his face. Fang Xing, why was he here? Wang Ling tried hard to hide his stunned expression. Hello, classmate Wang Ling. As they approached, Fang Xing was the first to speak as he tilted his head slightly and smiled at Wang Ling. In Wang Ling's view, this smile was very meaningful. Let me introduce you. This is brother Fang Xing. He's a partner I met when I went out on a mission back then. Speaking up to this point, grenade-throwing senior immortal suddenly laughed. Actually, brother Fang Xing has actually met Xilian once before. Ah. Xilian was puzzled. 6 years ago, when the gate between worlds first descended, a demon king descended from the sky. Do you still remember this? Grenade-throwing senior immortal asked. Xilian looked like she was recalling something, and then immediately nodded. Oh. I remember that the demon king directly landed on the head of a century-old crispy noodle snack flagship store. It even scared a 10-year-old Shota. Wang Ling, 3600 Spirit Creek Road, that's the address of that crispy noodle snack flagship store. Speaking up to this point, grenade-throwing senior immortal paused. And brother Fang Xing's family's noodle shop is right next to this flagship store. When that demon king descended back then, brother Fang Xing could be said to be the first witness. Chapter 279. Sometimes, coincidences were such unintentional things. Of course, Wang Ling preferred to call these so-called coincidences ill-fated relationships. Judging from Fang Xing's behavior toward him, Wang Ling already guessed that this guy had most likely already recognized him. If what grenade-throwing senior immortal said was true and Fang Xing had been the first witness, then he must have seen Wang Ling kill the demon king with one punch and Xilian embrace him. But, he had still been a little Shota at that time. Furthermore, Wang Ling remembered that he had used some face-molding techniques to change his appearance moderately over the last few years. How could he recognize him? Wang Ling couldn't figure it out. Grenade-throwing senior immortal had thought that Wang Ling and Fang Xing would be very happy to meet, but he could clearly sense that something was clearly wrong with Wang Ling after seeing Fang Xing. Grenade-throwing senior immortal saw this Ling Jinren's rarely expressionless face change to reveal a hint of awkwardness, and the latter took the initiative to move behind him to block Fang Xing's gaze. What was going on? Grenade-throwing senior immortal was a little baffled. Fang Xing, on the other hand, stood next to Xilian with a calm smile on his face. Xilian looked at Fang Xing's face with an intoxicated look in her eyes. In her hometown, she felt that this child was very handsome. So 6 years ago, brother Fang Xing was also there? Xilian had a startled expression on her face. I've actually been looking for witnesses all these years. I never thought that classmate Fang Xing would actually be the first witness. Fang Xing scratched his head a little embarrassedly. Actually, on that day 6 years ago, our family's noodle shop was about to move. Just as we were about to finish moving, a toad fell from the sky. Everyone, wait. Dharmaraja asked, then why did brother Fang Xing move back now? Fang Xing smiled. My dad said that toads attract wealth. Wherever a toad falls, there will definitely be rolling in wealth. Everyone, so after the government's post-disaster reconstruction work was completed, our family's noodle shop moved over. I only recently came to Songhai City and transferred here to study, while also helping our family's noodle shop business, Fang Xing said. Everyone nodded. I see. Those who could join the chat group were, at the very least, clean when it came to their family backgrounds. Grenade-throwing senior immortal's approval, the rest of the group naturally had nothing to say. If you have any more gossip, wait until we get in the car. From now on, brother Fang Xing is our brother. Grenade-throwing senior immortal put his hands on his hips and smiled with his white teeth. Also, let me tell you one more thing, brother Fang Xing and Ling Jinren are currently studying at the same high school. Wang Ling didn't show any expression on his face when he said this, but everyone around him exclaimed in surprise. Fatty Luo, is it a trend to go to high school these days? Dharmaraja's eyes were clearly a little excited as he stared at grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and asked, Senior Immortal, is Ling Jinren and Brother Fang Xing's school still lacking students? I also want to be a transfer student. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal laughed. The school probably doesn't want students who look too mature, right? That's right, that's right. Ling tidied up her appearance. If you want to find someone, you should find someone like me. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, I don't want an auntie with big breasts either. Ling, Wang Ling, everyone, when grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had booked the train tickets, they were numbered in the last 3 rows of the 4th carriage. Ling chose to sit alone in the 1st row, while Wang Ling directly chose to sit by the window in the last row, perfectly tucking himself into a corner. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had originally been sitting next to Wang Ling in the middle, but Wang Ling hadn't expected Fang Xing to ask to switch seats as soon as they got on the train. The two of them swapped seats, and then Wang Ling saw Fang Xing look at him with a bright expression on his face and smile very happily. Don't worry, classmate Wang Ling, I won't tell anyone about you. Fang Xing looked at Wang Ling and said telepathically. Wang Ling was stunned. He hadn't expected Fang Xing to actually know the mind-reading ability, which was a spell that even grenade-throwing Senior Immortal hadn't comprehended until now. Fang Xing felt that Wang Ling was an unstable factor. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had even thoroughly investigated his family background. But Wang Ling felt that he still needed to be on guard against this person, and his level was quite high. Sitting next to the two of them, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal looked a little embarrassed and felt that the atmosphere was unusually cold. As classmates, shouldn't they love each other? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal heaved a long sigh in his heart. No wonder there were cases of roommates being poisoned to death nowadays. At that moment, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's mind was filled with wild and fanciful thoughts. He couldn't imagine what it would be like if Wang Ling and Fang Xing got into the same university and were assigned to the same dormitory after graduating from high school. He felt that if these two people were together in the summer, they wouldn't even need to turn on the air conditioner, and wouldn't even need a fridge. The whole room would be an ice cave. So, in order to stop the atmosphere from becoming awkward, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal hurriedly took the opportunity to smooth things over. Brother Fang Xing, what did you bring? He saw that Fang Xing hadn't come empty-handed this time, and was actually carrying a small backpack on his back. Actually, it's nothing. Fang Xing said, I'm sure the seniors in the group must have brought their own unique magic artifacts in case we need them in Winter City this time to fight the dark forces. I don't have any magic artifacts on me, so I won't show off in front of the seniors. This backpack is actually filled with food. Food? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal smiled. Brother To has fasting pills on you. Even if you're hungry, you just need to eat one. No, my family's noodles are different from fasting pills. Not only can they help you break through, the most important thing is that they can quickly replenish your physical strength and spirit energy. Saying this, Fang Xing directly took out a wrapped noodle box from his backpack, which was unique to his family's noodle shop. When you eat noodles, you just need to inject spirit energy into the packaging, and it'll automatically heat up. Oh, that's right, apart from replenishing your physical strength and spirit energy, you can also quickly recover from external injuries. The corners of grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's mouth twitched. Wasn't this just F*** King Senza beans? In the front row, Dharmaraja was very interested in Fang Xing's introduction, and he turned around and said, Brother Fang Xing, your things are pretty good. But eating noodles is a little troublesome. Do you have a simplified version? Yes. Saying this, Fang Xing directly took out a glittering golden packaging from his backpack. This is our family's crispy noodle snack. You don't need to heat it up, you can eat it directly after opening the packaging. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, was it an illusion? He seemed to have seen Ling Jinren's throat move just now. Brother Ling. Chapter 280. The truth was that even Wang Ling couldn't say for sure how this ill-fated relationship had developed. Of course, if he knew, it wouldn't be called ill-fated relationship. But now, as he silently nibbled on the crispy noodle snacks, Wang Ling knew very well that this ill-fated relationship had already begun to deepen. After eating the crispy noodle snack, the young man in white sucked his fingers and praised it profusely. "Brother Fang Xing, this crispy noodle snack tastes pretty good." In the front seats, Dharmaraja, Immortal Toya, Fatty Luo and Salian Jinren all nodded in agreement. "Indeed, after eating the noodles, I feel like my body is filled with spirit energy." "Brother Fang Xing, did you add a lot of spirit herbs to your noodles?" Immortal Toya savored it carefully. "There are over 100 types of spirit herbs in this small bag." It wasn't easy to cover up the flavor of these spirit herbs while ensuring that the crispy noodle snacks taste good. "Senior, you flatter me." Fang Xing smiled. "I just applied what I learned at school to my family's noodle shop. These new varieties of instant noodles, including the crispy noodle snacks, are new products developed by our noodle shop, and we haven't officially sold them yet." "Ha ha ha, then aren't we the first people to eat crabs?" Dharmaraja laughed like a $200 child. As he laughed, he directly turned his head to look at Wang Ling. "By the way, what do you think, Ling Jinren?" Everyone knew that Ling Jinren didn't have any hobbies other than crispy noodle snacks. There was probably no one here who had a greater right to speak than Ling Jinren. Wang Ling had thought this would be a very simple question. However, he sank into a long silence. For some reason, whenever Wang Ling thought it was a simple question, he felt that things inexplicably became thorny when it came to Fang Xing. Wang Ling didn't dislike Fang Xing, but felt that this person was very troublesome. Initially, Wang Ling didn't want to answer Dharmaraja's question in order to maintain his cold and aloof image, but there was a good saying, and that was "you can't help it." Since he had already eaten, Wang Ling felt that nodding a little wouldn't hurt him. And so, after 2 long minutes of silence, Wang Ling stared at the glittering bag in his hand and nodded. Grenade-throwing senior immortal couldn't help skiing at this scene. Brother Ling rarely praises people. Brother Fang Xing's product will definitely sell well. It's great that classmate Wang Ling likes it. Fang Xing gave his trademark sunny smile and looked at Wang Ling with a burning gaze. He noticed that Wang Ling had already turned his head to the window and was looking at the scenery outside. After that, there was a brief silence in the car. This time, they were going to Winter City to directly raze Immortal Mansion to the ground. This was actually a secret, and when they had set off, Grenade-throwing senior immortal and the others had instructed them not to mention it on the road, in case the walls had ears. Since Immortal Mansion was able to gain a foothold in Winter City, where the military was stationed, the number of spies in the shadows must be staggering. Apart from receiving customers, Fatty Luo was someone who didn't like to gossip too much. As for Immortal Toya, he was even more ascetic. As an alchemist, there were times when he would sit in front of his pill furnace for days and nights at a time. The train to Winter City only took 3 hours, but for this handsome man with an ancient style, it was like the blink of an eye. Seeing that they had dropped the subject, Salian Jinren simply started knitting a scarf in the car. Wang Ling had heard Grenade-throwing senior immortal say before that Salian Jinren had knitted this scarf for her new boyfriend, thus, Dharmaraja had been stifled on the way. Unable to hold it in any longer, Dharmaraja decided to stir things up and ask some gossip. "By the way, how on earth did Grenade-throwing senior immortal and Brother Fang Xing know each other?" "Senior immortal only said that you ran into Brother Fang Xing when you were out on a mission." Actually, although Grenade-throwing senior immortal had been introducing Fang Xing's current identity, most people in the chat group didn't know about his past. It could be said that Dharmaraja's question was also what Salian Jinren and Fatty Luo wanted to know. Furthermore, they were even more curious about Fang Xing's strength. Based on his current aura, Fang Xing wasn't weak, he was at the average level of the people here, or even above them. Actually, this question, because it involves Brother Fang Xing's privacy, I wasn't going to say it at first. But Brother Fang Xing specifically told me that if you ask me a question in person, I'll answer it. Grenade-throwing senior immortal crossed one leg over the other and looked like he was about to gossip, but then he realized that his legs weren't as long as Fang Xing's when he crossed them, so he quietly put them down again. Brother Fang Xing and I became close. To be exact, it was 3 years ago when he was still studying in Jinghua City. Classmate Fang was an adopted son of the Fang family, and was adopted by the Fong couple when he was very young. Later, because his grades were very good, Tianshi Imperial High School made an exception and recruited him. Do you remember that girl whose entire family was silenced 3 years ago? I once accepted a little girl's 1 yuan coin, and directly went to avenge her by slaughtering those evil forces. When that happened, it actually wasn't far from Tianshi Imperial High School. Grenade-throwing senior immortal recalled carefully. And it was during that incident that I happened to meet Brother Fong Xing. By the time I wiped out those evil forces, it was already dark. Someone had called the police, and before they arrived on the scene, Brother Fong Xing helped me clean up the aftermath and get rid of the bodies of those evil people. Back then, everyone had heard of the incident. This great death-courting senior had accepted a little girl's 1 yuan coin as a reward and wiped out the entire underground gang of evil forces in Jinghua City. At that time, it had caused an uproar in the cultivation circle. But no one had expected that Fong Xing would actually be left out of that incident back then. Dharmaraja was very satisfied with this gossip. So that's how it is. But now that Senior Immortal mentioned it, I seem to remember reading a related report in a small newspaper somewhere back then. It was said that Senior Immortal wasn't the only person who wiped out those evil forces in Jinghua City back then. There was also a girl. It's probably just a coincidence. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal chuckled. I did a very good job keeping that incident a secret back then. If I hadn't exposed Brother Fong Xing, I don't think anyone would have known about it. As for the small package of paper from that place, it's probably just for attention. Maybe. Dharmaraja nodded skeptically, then turned to look at Ling Jinren. What do you think? As soon as he said this, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal hurriedly covered Dharmaraja's mouth and made a shuga gesture as he said in a very low voice, You mustn't disturb Ling Jinren when he's studying, it's taboo. Everyone looked over and was stunned to find that while they had been discussing Fong Xing's background just now, Ling Jinren was actually holding a book called One Talisman One Seal Script and happily doing exercises for the Tao Talismans class. Chapter 281. No matter how strong Wang Ling was, he was still essentially a student, and since he was a student, he had to learn. Actually, Wang Ling felt a little guilty about leaving a clone to substitute for him in class. It was just like how a lot of people only did their homework on the last day of the summer or winter break. Although Wang Ling only needed to hand over his homework to that guy Pen, and he could finish it in a few minutes, powered by spirit energy, the bullet train traveled all the way to Winter City, and it only took a short 3 hours to cross thousands of li. As they approached Winter City, it was very obvious that the air around them quickly became colder, just as the rumors said. Wang Ling looked through the carriage and saw that a lot of cultivators had consciously put on more clothes for themselves. Unless one was at the Golden Core stage, it was a little hard to resist the cold in Winter City. In contrast, the 7 people in the chat group didn't get up or put on more clothes. It was a harmonious scene. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was still wearing the long johns that Wang Ling had given him back then, so he wasn't afraid of the cold at all. Looking at the snow-covered scenery and the clear sky outside the bullet train, Wang Ling felt that his agitated mood had calmed down a lot. Burying his head in homework earlier had actually been a way for him to calm down. Tisk, it's almost minus 60 degrees outside, right? Some magic treasures aren't very resistant to the cold. In an environment like Winter City, I'm afraid they'll only be able to exert less than half their power. Fatty Luo looked out the window. Next to him, Dharmaraja looked at Fatty Luo's undershirt and baggy underpants and the palm leaf fan in his hand, and shivered. Brother Luo, can you put on some clothes? I wasn't cold at first, but now I'm cold because of you. This was Fatty Luo's trademark get-up, undershirt, underpants and a palm leaf fan, just like the goggles that Dharmaraja always carried with him. None of your business. Fatty Luo automatically ignored Dharmaraja's opinion. My undershirt and underpants are very good at keeping warm. If Fatty Luo hadn't said it, no one would have believed that these undershirt and underpants were actually magic treasures, and rather high-grade Taoist robes at that. About 10 minutes later, the melodious voice of a female train attendant rang out in the train. Dear passengers, thank you for taking the Harmony Spiritual Powered train. We are about to arrive at our final station, Winter City. Thank you for your support. We look forward to seeing you again. Have a pleasant journey. The 7 of them got off the bus and exited the station. At the exit, everyone was stopped and had their IDs checked. Everything played out as grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had predicted. Although Winter City was where Huaxio's cultivation army was stationed, there weren't any restrictions on ordinary people coming here. Although it was a little cold, the snowy scenery was still pretty good. Wang Ling heard that Little Black's Armstrong Cyclone Jet Armstrong Cannon had been inspired by an ice sculpture in Winter City back then. The owners of the ice sculptures were a silver-haired uncle who loved to pick his nose and a girl with a bun hairstyle. Because he collected all kinds of magic treasure maps all year round, Fatty Luo had the honor of being the map navigator this time. Combined with the map of Winter City, which Wang Ling had memorized earlier, Fatty Luo could basically confirm the location of Immortal Mansion. It's at Sanyuan Road. I'm sure. In the rustling cold wind and fluttering snow, Fatty Luo sat on a bench in the square in front of the train station in just a pair of underpants as he confirmed the final location for everyone with a little excitement on his face. Lord Jinka. I'm here to find you. From his words, it was clear that this fangirl Fatty Luo was confident in Jinka. He had used the word find instead of save. In Fatty Luo's view, Jinka was already strong enough on his own. It wouldn't be strange if he directly destroyed Immortal Mansion. Wang Ling frowned slightly. There was no other reason than that he had a bad feeling. He recalled the prophetic dream that Loopy Toad had told him about before. In it, there was a fatty who had been tied to an iron pillar, and then had his heart pierced by a Taoist in red. Wang Ling had a vague feeling that if that fatty was among the 7 of them on this trip, it would be either Fatty Luo or Dharmaraja. Brother Ling, is there a problem? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked when he saw that Wang Ling's expression didn't look too good. Wang Ling hurriedly shook his head. Before Loopy Toad's prophetic dream was confirmed, Wang Ling felt that there was no need to cause panic at all. Then it's decided. Let's go to Sanyuan Road first and take a look, said Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. But how are we going to get there? Asked Silianjinren. Most of the 7 of them weren't familiar with Winter City. Only Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had come here a few times when he was out on a mission, but he still wasn't very familiar with Sanyuan Road. Should we rent an unlicensed car? I saw a lot of unlicensed car drivers scurrying about in the square just now. Fatty Luo smiled a little shiftily. Because he had been refining and collecting magic treasures all year round, Fatty Luo actually had a criminal record as a grave robber. Every time he went somewhere, he would rent an unlicensed car to take him straight to his destination, so he had always had a special feeling for the unlicensed car drivers. Brother Luo, hurry up and put away that bold idea of yours. It'll be very troublesome if we're caught renting an unlicensed car. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sighed. It's better to use DD Taxi for the 7 of us. But just as Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was about to open the app, a black commercial car approached them from a distance. A sky blue number plate. Everyone couldn't help frowning, because this number plate was specially used by the Winter City government. Wang Ling was puzzled when he suddenly received a call at that moment. He looked at the caller ID, it was actually Audiobook. Staring at the commercial car with a government number plate as it approached and slowed down, Wang Ling's wristwatch vibrated for a few seconds before he finally picked up the call. Hello, Shifu. Just as he picked up the call, Audiobook's excited voice was already on the other end of the line. Are you in Winter City now? Why didn't you tell your disciple before you went to Winter City? The corners of Wang Ling's mouth twitched. Just as he was about to ask how Audiobook had found out, Audiobook had already answered first. Today, Warden Liang and I were checking on the work of the Master of Shadow Stream's younger sister, who was arrested last time. His network surveillance system immediately saw your entry record. Just swipe your 3rd-generation ID card and we'll know right away. Shifu, don't worry, even if I had 100 guts, I wouldn't be able to track you. Wang Ling, Audiobook, the black commercial car in front of you was arranged by Warden Liang and a colleague from Winter City's municipal government. It's very inconvenient to move around in Winter City, so you can have them pick you up, no need to be polite. Wang Ling. Sure enough, disciples were all Shifu's sweet little cotton-padded jackets. After saying that, Audrey hung up the phone excitedly. In the office of Songhai First Prison, Warden Liang looked at Audrey a little strangely. Director Zhua, why are you so happy? Is your Shifu going to pass on his secret art to you? Oh, not really. Audrey shook his head first, then sighed. It's just that I've been too busy recently, and haven't seen Shifu in a long time. Now that we've talked on the phone, I feel a lot better. Director Zhua, I personally feel that there's something wrong with the relationship between you and your disciple. Warden Liang analyzed the situation. A master and disciple who haven't seen each other for a long time are like a long-distance couple. If they don't keep in touch normally, I'm afraid this relationship won't last long. It would have been better if Warden Liang hadn't said anything, but as soon as he said this, even Audrey panicked a little. He grabbed Warden Liang's hand excitedly. Brother, thank you for the reminder. Warden Liang, what are you doing? Audrey, buying tickets. To Winter City. To find my Shifu. Chapter 282. It could only be said that this was the horror of the spirit energy information era. Back then, many cultivators who went into seclusion would never have thought that the informatization of the cultivation world could develop to such an extent. As soon as they swiped their third-generation ID cards, the systems of various places would immediately respond. The Skynet system in Warden Liang's prison was currently Huaxiao Nation's largest anti-crime super software, which automatically tracked down wanted criminals online and covered the entire country. In addition to being able to quickly capture suspects through facial features, the three-generation ID card linkage was also one of its functions. It was just that this speed was a little beyond Wang Ling's imagination, and also subverted everyone's fixed impression of him. It had only been 5 minutes since they had gotten their IDs checked at the station, but Audrey had already received the news in Songhai City. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and the others all heard Audrey's voice on the phone, and soon after, they had reluctant expressions on their faces. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, after all this time, it turns out Little Zhua sent this car. Little Zhua, who's this? Fatty Luo asked. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, Little Zhua's full name is Audrey, and he's the director of the general administration of 100 schools in Songhai City. He's also our Ling Jinren's disciple. I'll introduce him to you next time. Oh, it's that Little Zhua. Cai Jinren, Fu Wang, and the others suddenly realized. Everyone stood where they were. The government black commercial vehicle with the sky blue license plate was already slowly approaching. When it got close, the car steadily stopped. As the window rolled down, Wang Ling saw a young man of about 30 in the driver's seat. He was dressed in a suit and had a standard buzz cut. As soon as the car window rolled down, he greeted him with a smile. Is this teacher Wang Ling? The young man stared at Wang Ling. This was because Audrey knew that since the young man had never seen Wang Ling before, even if he gave him a photo, it would instantly turn into a mosaic. So he simply told the young man directly that Wang Ling was a very young-looking teenager with a poker face. Therefore, the young man recognized it with a single glance. Moreover, he was sure that he was not mistaken. Wang Ling, teacher, the corner of Wang Ling's mouth twitched again. When had he been addressed like this? My name is Zhao Kai. Teacher Zhua sent me to pick up seniors. The young man gave a simple self-introduction. Seniors, please get in the car. Feel free to let me know if you have any arrangements for the next 2 days. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal raised his eyebrows. When did Little Zhua accept disciples? Zhao Kai smiled awkwardly. Actually, I'm the deputy director of Winter City's general administration of 100 schools. I just became Teacher Zhua's disciple not long ago, so I wanted him to help me with my work. Oh, so he's a teacher at work, grenade-throwing senior immortal immediately understood. If it was a cultivation shifu, then Wang Ling would probably become a shigong. If that was the case, this young man had really made a killing. In the car, Zhao Kai held the steering wheel firmly. He was a little nervous. Audiobook had especially told him that the people coming to Winter City this time were all famous great seniors in the cultivation circle in Songhai City, and he couldn't afford to offend any of them. In particular, Ling Junren, who looked the youngest and the most handsome, had a poker face and didn't like to talk, so they had to be especially respectful when facing him. Furthermore, Zhao Kai had also prepared crispy noodle snacks according to Audiobook's instructions. They were in the car cabinet in the front passenger seat. But from beginning to end, he didn't have the courage to give the crispy noodle snacks to Wang Ling. Staring at the cabinet in the front passenger seat, Zhao Kai sighed in his heart. He looked in the rearview mirror and asked weakly, "Seniors, where are we going? Do you know Sanyuan Road?" Fatty Luo asked as he moved his head closer to the mirror. Sanyuan Road? Zhao Kai nodded. It's a road on the outskirts of Winter City, and it's very remote. But it's rich in spirit energy, and there used to be a lot of sect headquarters here, like White Dragon Taoist Temple, Money Dragon Sword Sect and so on. But as the cold air from the far north seeped into Winter City, the temperature dropped even more than before. Later, these sects all moved out, because Foundation establishment disciples in Winter City couldn't stand the cold at all. White Dragon Taoist Temple and Money Dragon Sword Sect. Hearing this, Wang Ling's heart stirred. It wasn't just him. Grenade-throwing senior immortal and the others next to him also had curious expressions on their faces. Of these two great sects, White Dragon Taoist Temple was famous for its 8 trigrams array, while Money Dragon Sword Sect was famous for its cloud-piercing sword technique. These two great sects didn't have a long history, but they were cradles for nurturing Foundation establishment cultivators. Furthermore, they had branches all over the country, and their status was comparable to that of Lanxiang in the mining industry. Zhao Kai was a local of Winter City who had grown up here, so he had a good understanding of its culture and geography. It could be said that Audiobook had found the right person to pick up Wang Ling and the others this time. Seeing the curious expressions on the faces of the great seniors in the back of the car, he thought for a while, then continued, "Of course, outsiders say that the two great sects left Winter City because of environmental problems. Internally, there's another saying that the two great sects were forced to leave." Hearing this, grenade-throwing senior immortal's heart stirred, and he perked up. "Can you elaborate?" "Some people say that the two sect leaders received a huge sum of money and left. Others say that the two old sect leaders were coerced. But no matter what the rumors are, the situation isn't very good." Zhao Kai smiled bitterly. Actually, this wasn't a secret in Winter City, but most of it was hearsay, and he couldn't go into detail. However, Zhao Kai still told them everything he knew as they drove. The cause of this incident was the ancestral land occupied by the White Dragon Taoist Temple and the Money Dragon Sword Sect on Sanyuan Road. The headquarters of these two sects were established here, just like McDonald's and KFC. Each of them occupied a spirit vein at the foot of Sanyuan Road. This spirit vein was currently a very scarce land resource in the country, but the two sects had each occupied half of it, and had been here since ancient times. Several times, senior officials from the Land Resource Bureau had gone to negotiate with them, but had returned empty-handed. But about 10 years ago, the two sects had moved away one after another. Although Zhao Kai didn't know how this had started, grenade-throwing senior immortal felt that at least half of the cause and effect could be explained by Immortal Mansion. Then, who is the owner of this spirit vein on Sanyuan Road now? I don't know. In any case, it doesn't belong to the country or the two great sects now. I heard that the ancestral land of the two sects has been purchased, Zhao Kai said as he drove. How could I not know? Zhao Kai pursed his lips and said, "Well, the ownership of the spirit vein has always been a top secret. People who aren't at that level have no access to it. And the strangest thing is that there are no buildings on the spirit vein on Sanyuan Road." No buildings? Did he hide it? Chapter 283. The 7 people in the car weren't surprised by the complexity of Immortal Mansion. To be able to establish a foothold in Winter City, where the military was stationed and the security was strict, even ID checks had to go through the Skynet system. Even an idiot could tell how deep the waters behind this were. But the problem now was that Wang Ling could clearly sense that Jinka was on Sanyuan Road, but Victory Zhao said that there were no buildings on Sanyuan Road. What was going on? Could they have used some kind of invisible illusion spell, or built an underground palace? Cai Lianjinren guessed. That's impossible. The leaders of the Land Resource Bureau aren't fools. They've already thought of everything the seniors can think of. After the 2 sects left one after another, that spirit vein inexplicably became a private property, but we can't get in touch with its owner. A few years ago, there were people waiting here every year, but since this year, no one has come, said Victory Zhao. Why? Because they've given up resisting. If we can't get in touch with the owner, there's no point in squatting here. Holding the steering wheel, Victory Zhao shrugged helplessly. From their conversation in the car, Victory Zhao could already vaguely guess what these seniors were going to do. It had to have something to do with the owner of the spirit vein. Furthermore, it was very obvious that this group of seniors had brought a map and marked the location. They had definitely come prepared. Because he had some understanding of the situation on Sanyuan Road, when he heard that these 7 people were going there, Victory Zhao's heart had thumped, and he had privately thought that this group of seniors had found the wrong location. But when he heard that it was Ling Jinren who had marked the coordinates on the map in the car, in the end, he could only shrink back and swallow his words. He couldn't offend any of the 7 seniors in the car, especially that Ling Jinren. This was something Director Zhua had emphasized repeatedly when he had called him earlier. In fact, even if Zhua hadn't emphasized it, Victory Zhao could feel the respect the other seniors in the car had for this Ling Jinren. Along the way, Victory Zhao pretended to glance at Wang Ling out of the corner of his eye through the rearview mirror in the car. Apart from marveling at how young this Ling Jinren was, he also started to feel a lot more curious about him. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was in the front passenger seat. After thinking for a bit, Victory Zhao asked very carefully, "Does Ling Jinren usually not like to talk?" After hearing this, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal nodded very seriously. Isn't there a saying that silence is golden? All sages like to think. Then, what is Ling Jinren thinking about? On the way here just now, Ling Jinren was thinking about the exercises in 1 talisman and 1 seal script, and I'm guessing he's still thinking about his midterm exam. When Zhao Kai heard this, he could not help but sigh in his heart. The matter of the sage was really hard to fathom. Only now did he realize that the practice textbook of a talisman and a seal script was actually so useful. He seemed to have found the gap between himself and these great seniors. He could only blame himself for his lack of talent, for not being able to understand the secrets of heaven from this common high school practice textbook. After thinking for a while, Zhao Kai decided to change the topic. "Senior, we're about to reach the Sanyuan Road. It's just up ahead." So fast. Zhao Kai was familiar with the roads in Winter City. Moreover, he was using a commercial vehicle with a government license plate. He even used the green lane to pass through the toll station, so it was reasonable for him to be fast. The black commercial vehicle sped along the highway. When it passed a road sign, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal took a look and, sure enough, saw that the intersection of Sanyuan Road was after the highway up ahead. "Just drop us off at the intersection, you can go back first. If I need your help, I definitely won't hesitate to contact you again." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal bared his white teeth at Zhao Kai with his trademark smile. "Very well, Senior, it just so happens that I also have something to deal with," said Zhao Kai. "What is it?" Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked casually. There's a perverted preschool teacher who mistreats young children in kindergarten. He actually squeezed half a tube of wasabi into a child's mouth. He's simply insane." Zhao Kai said a little indignantly. The city takes this very seriously, and unanimously voted to send this pervert to the Internet Addiction Center for electrotherapy. In the back seat, Dharmaraja thought for a bit, then gave Zhao Kai his business card. Tell your city leaders that I'll give them a 10% discount for electrotherapy. I promise I'll electrocute this pervert until he's tender on the inside and crispy on the outside. Zhao Kai. 10 minutes later, they arrived at their destination. Zhao Kai stopped the car and pressed the automatic door button. The side door of the commercial vehicle opened, and everyone got out one after another. Because Wang Ling was sitting in the last row, he was the last to get out. Zhao Kai stared at the car cabinet in the front passenger seat and thought for a long time. In the end, before Wang Ling got out of the car, he plucked up the courage to open the cabinet, took out 2 packets of original flavor crispy noodle snacks, and stuffed them into Wang Ling's hands. Ling Zhenren, this is for you. Please accept it. Wang Ling was actually stupefied as he held the crispy noodle snacks. On the other hand, grenade-throwing senior immortal laughed on the side and couldn't help patting Zhao Kai on the shoulder by the window. Young man, you have a bright future ahead of you. For some reason, Zhao Kai felt overwhelmed by the favor. After watching Zhao Kai's commercial vehicle drive away, everyone calmed down and looked at the map again. According to Ling Zhenren's mark, this is the place, Fatty Luo said with absolute certainty as he held up the map in his hand in the chilly wind. But as Zhao Kai had said, this area around Sanyuan Road was basically a suburb. It was covered in snow and there wasn't even a tree to be seen. Thick snow had piled up on both sides of the road. Wang Ling looked along the road and saw that the snow was already more than 3 meters deep. Senior Immortal, can you tell what kind of camouflage spell this is? Fatty Luo looked at the empty street. Although he didn't see anything, he still felt that it was quite suspicious. But while they hadn't discovered anything yet, everyone could indeed sense the power of the spirit vein. This is indeed a rare cultivation paradise, as well as a land of good feng shui. Relying on the spirit vein, if a golden core cultivator goes into seclusion here, they won't have to worry about a lack of spirit energy at all, Dharmaraja said. On the side, grenade-throwing senior immortal opened his heavenly eye. After carefully observing their surroundings, he finally threw a grenade into the pile of snow in front of them. There was a loud bang, and a large amount of snow exploded in all directions. Senior Immortal, what are you doing? I was just wondering if this is some kind of illusion spell. The space created by an illusion spell isn't very stable, which I can tell with my sky bomb grenade. But it's very obvious that the space here is very stable. Grenade-throwing senior immortal sighed and looked at Wang Ling. Brother Ling, do you have any ideas? Wang Ling narrowed his eyes as he gazed at the snowy landscape in front of him. Naturally, he had sensed something. But before he could speak telepathically, Fang Xing had actually also sensed it. Cupping his chin in his hands, he walked up to the front, his long legs standing out in contrast to the white snow. The aura is here, but I can't see anything, so I rule out the possibility of an illusion spell. Combined with the spirit vein under our feet, I thought of a camouflage spell. Seniors, have you ever heard of a holy array that requires a spirit vein to work? You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.